good evening, my friend, or perhaps good morning, depending on where in the world you are listening from tonight. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Is it a quiet apartment in New York? A rainy evening somewhere in England? A peaceful town in Canada? Leave a comment and tell me your country and what time it is there right now. I always enjoy imagining these stories traveling across oceans and finding readers in different corners of the world. And if you enjoy slow, thoughtful journeys into the past, consider liking and subscribing so you won't miss future stories. Your comments are always appreciated, and many of them inspire future topics. Now, settle into a comfortable position. Perhaps dim the lights. Maybe wrap yourself in a blanket. Because tonight, we are exploring a question that seems simple at first glance. Yet the deeper historians, anthropologists, archaeologists, and geneticists have looked into it, the stranger it becomes. Why are human beings different colors? Why do some populations have very dark skin, while others have pale skin? And if we all belong to the same species, why do we look so different at all? The answer takes us back thousands upon thousands of years to a world without cities, without roads, without written language, and without any idea that one day people would wonder about these questions while sitting in front of glowing screens. Imagine Earth long before modern nations existed. No United States, no England, no France, no China as we know it today. Only small groups of humans moving across enormous landscapes. Our story begins in Africa, where the earliest members of our species evolved. For most of human history, people lived outdoors. There were no permanent houses, no umbrellas, no sunscreen, no protective glass windows. The sun touched human skin almost every day. And the sun, although essential for life, can also be dangerous. The sunlight that reaches Earth contains ultraviolet radiation, often called UV radiation. Too much UV exposure can damage skin and important nutrients inside the body. One of those nutrients is folate, a vitamin crucial for healthy reproduction and development. Scientists believe that dark skin evolved partly because it provided protection against intense ultraviolet radiation. The earliest humans living near the equator experienced some of the strongest sunlight on Earth. Generation after generation, individuals with skin containing more melanin had advantages. Melanin is a pigment that gives color to skin, hair, and eyes. Higher levels of melanin help absorb and reduce harmful ultraviolet radiation. Over thousands of generations, natural selection favored darker skin in regions with intense sunlight. This was not a decision. No one chose it. No tribe voted on it. It happened gradually, through countless births, lives, and deaths. The process was so slow that no individual could notice it. Yet across enormous spans of time, populations changed. If you could somehow stand on an African plain 100,000 years ago, you would see humans whose bodies were already adapting to their environment in remarkable ways. They hunted, they gathered plants, they cared for children, they told stories around fires. And all the while, evolution continued its quiet work. Then something extraordinary happened. Human beings began leaving Africa. Not all at once. Not as one giant migration. Small groups moved slowly into new lands. Some traveled into the Middle East. Others continued farther. Over generations, people reached regions that experienced very different climates. Some places received less sunlight. Some had long winters. Some had cloudy skies for much of the year. The farther certain populations moved from the equator, the more different their environment became. This created a new challenge. While too much ultraviolet radiation can be harmful, too little can also create problems. Human bodies use sunlight to help produce vitamin D. Vitamin D plays an important role in maintaining healthy bones and other biological functions. In regions with weaker sunlight, extremely high levels of melanin could make vitamin D production more difficult. Over thousands of years, natural selection favored genetic variations that allowed lighter skin to develop in some populations. Again, this was not a sudden event. It did not happen in a single century. It unfolded across immense stretches of time. Imagine a family living 10,000 years ago. Their children look much like them. Their grandchildren do as well. Changes are tiny, almost invisible. But after hundreds of generations, those tiny differences accumulate. The result is what we see today. Yet skin color is only one chapter of a much larger story. Human populations adapted to many different environments. People living in high-altitude regions faced challenges that coastal populations never experienced. Communities in cold climates developed different strategies than those living in tropical forests. Food sources varied. Diseases varied. Temperatures varied. Every environment presented unique pressures. Take the example of high mountains. Today, populations in places such as the Himalayas and the Andes possess genetic adaptations that help them live in thin air. Their ancestors spent countless generations in those regions. Slowly, natural selection favored traits that improved survival. The same principle appears throughout human history. Adaptation did not create separate species. It created variation within a single species. That distinction is important. For centuries, many people believed human differences indicated fundamentally different kinds of humans. Modern genetics tells a very different story. In fact, humans are remarkably similar. If you compare the DNA of people from opposite sides of the world, the overwhelming majority is identical. The differences that seem so obvious on the surface represent only a tiny fraction of our genetic makeup. A traveler from medieval England might have been astonished by the appearance of people from distant lands. Likewise, travelers from Africa, Asia, or the Americas often described unfamiliar populations with equal fascination. Yet beneath clothing, language, customs, and appearance, all belonged to the same human family. And as our journey continues, we will discover that skin color is only the beginning of a much deeper story involving migration, climate, survival, culture, and some of the most surprising discoveries modern science has ever made. Because the further researchers looked into human origins, the more they realized that many assumptions people once accepted were far more complicated than anyone imagined. The more scientists studied human variation, the more they discovered that the old idea of neat, separate groups simply did not match reality. Imagine standing beside a campfire 20,000 years ago. The night air is cool. A few sparks drift upward toward a sky crowded with stars. Around the fire sits a small band of humans. They laugh, argue, share food, tell stories, and prepare for another day of survival. At first glance, they seem completely ordinary, and in many ways they are. They love their children. They worry about dangers. They remember the dead. They hope for tomorrow. These emotions would be familiar to people living today in New York, London, Chicago, Manchester, Sydney, or Toronto. The distance between us and them is mostly time. Yet those ancient families lived in a world that constantly shaped their bodies. For thousands of years, people moved. Some migrations were short. Others carried populations across entire continents. A few families might follow herds into a new valley. Their descendants could eventually find themselves hundreds or even thousands of miles from where their ancestors once lived. When enough generations pass, populations begin to develop characteristics that become more common in one region than another. Hair texture is one example. Human hair varies enormously. Some populations tend to have tightly curled hair. Others tend to have wavy hair. Others tend to have straighter hair. Scientists continue studying exactly why these differences evolved, but climate appears to have played a role. In hot environments, tightly curled hair may help reduce heat reaching the scalp while still allowing airflow. Different climates created different challenges, and over immense stretches of time, different traits became more common. But evolution is rarely simple. A single trait often results from many genes interacting together. The story becomes even more complicated when populations meet and mix. And humans have been mixing for a very long time. Ancient DNA research has revealed something remarkable. Human history was not a series of isolated groups living forever apart. Instead, people frequently met, traded, migrated, intermarried, and exchanged ideas. Ancient populations often blended together. The result is that modern humans carry genetic legacies from countless ancestors. If you could trace your family tree back far enough, it would spread across enormous portions of the human story. Many people imagine ancestry as a narrow line stretching backward. The reality looks more like an expanding web. Every generation doubles the number of ancestors. 2 parents. For grandparents. 8 great-grandparents. 16 before them. The numbers grow rapidly. Eventually, the branches overlap and intertwine in ways almost impossible to visualize. Human history is full of connections that nobody living at the time could have imagined. While migration shaped appearance, geography also influenced daily life. Consider the Ice Age. Large portions of the northern hemisphere experienced conditions that would seem harsh even to modern people. Massive ice sheets covered enormous regions. Temperatures were lower. Landscapes looked dramatically different. Animals wandered territories that no longer exist in the same form today. Humans adapted as best they could. They developed tools. They sewed clothing. They built shelters. They learned where to find food during difficult seasons. These adaptations were cultural rather than biological. And this distinction is one of the most important features of human history. Unlike many animals, humans survive not only through physical traits, but also through knowledge. A child born in a cold region does not inherit a coat. The child learns how to make one. A child born near the ocean does not inherit fishing techniques. The child learns them from older generations. Culture became one of humanity's greatest survival tools. Knowledge could travel much faster than genes. A useful idea might spread across communities within years. A genetic adaptation might require thousands of years. This combination of biology and culture helped humans occupy environments that would otherwise have been impossible. Deserts, mountains, forests, grasslands, frozen coastlines. Humans learned to live in all of them. As populations expanded into new territories, another fascinating process occurred. Different groups began developing unique traditions. Languages changed. Foods changed. Clothing styles changed. Religious beliefs changed. Methods of building homes changed. Yet beneath these differences remained a shared human nature. Archaeologists frequently uncover evidence showing that people separated by vast distances often solved problems in surprisingly similar ways. They created tools. They decorated objects. They buried their dead. They produced art. Some of the oldest known artistic creations are tens of thousands of years old. Imagine someone carefully painting an animal on a cave wall by flickering firelight. That person had hopes, fears, and imagination. The urge to create appears to be deeply human. Whether in Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, or the Americas, people express themselves through symbols and images. These discoveries remind us that intelligence and creativity were never limited to one region or one population. For much of recorded history, however, many societies believed their own culture represented the center of civilization. Ancient kingdoms often viewed outsiders as strange or inferior. This pattern appeared repeatedly throughout history. The tendency to divide people into us and them is ancient. Yet modern research paints a different picture. Human populations have influenced one another for thousands of years. Trade routes connected distant regions. Ideas traveled astonishing distances. Objects crossed continents. Long before airplanes existed, goods and knowledge moved between cultures. A traveler carrying stories from one place could unknowingly reshape another. Consider something as simple as food. Many foods people associate with a particular nation actually originated somewhere else. Plants, animals, farming techniques, and recipes traveled across borders for centuries. The world has always been more connected than it first appears. Meanwhile, changes continued inside the human body itself. Small genetic variations emerged naturally. Most had little effect. Some disappeared. Others spread through populations. One famous example involves lactose tolerance. Most mammals lose the ability to digest milk efficiently after infancy. Yet some human populations develop genetic adaptations allowing adults to consume milk without difficulty. This change appears connected to the domestication of animals and the development of dairying. In regions where milk became an important food source, individuals capable of digesting it often gained advantages. Over many generations, those genetic traits became increasingly common. This illustrates an important point. Human evolution did not stop in the distant past. It continued throughout recorded history and continues even today. Evolution is not a ladder leading toward perfection. It is simply the ongoing process of change within populations over time. The environment changes. Human behavior changes. Opportunities change. Challenges change. And populations respond. As researchers uncovered more evidence, another surprising realization emerged. Many characteristics people notice immediately, skin color, hair texture, facial features, represent only a small portion of human adaptation. Some of the most significant differences are invisible. Genes influencing disease resistance. Genes affecting metabolism. Genes helping populations survive particular environments. These hidden adaptations reveal how deeply connected humanity remains to the places where ancestors lived. Yet perhaps the most astonishing discovery of all was still waiting beneath the ground, hidden in ancient bones that would force scientists to rethink the human story itself. Because modern humans were not always alone. For a long time, other kinds of humans walked the earth beside our ancestors. And their forgotten history would change everything researchers thought they knew about who we are. For much of modern history, people imagined the human story as a simple one. There were ancient humans, then there were modern humans. One replaced the other. The end. But the ground beneath archaeologists' feet held a far more complicated tale. Imagine a cold morning in Europe tens of thousands of years ago. A thin layer of frost covers the grass. The sky is gray. Smoke rises from a small shelter built from wood, animal hides, and whatever materials could be gathered from the landscape. Inside sits a family. They are not modern humans exactly, yet they are not animals either. They make tools. They hunt. They care for injured members of their group. They understand fire. They tell stories in voices now lost forever. These were the people we call Neanderthals. For many years, Neanderthals were portrayed as crude and primitive creatures. Old illustrations often showed them hunched over, almost ape-like, as if they barely belonged in the human family. That picture has changed dramatically. Modern evidence suggests Neanderthals were intelligent, adaptable, and far more human than earlier generations realized. Their brains were large. In some cases, even slightly larger than those of modern humans. Brain size alone does not determine intelligence, but it reminds us that these were not simple creatures wandering blindly through the Ice Age. Neanderthals survived in difficult environments for hundreds of thousands of years. They faced cold climates, dangerous predators, and changing landscapes. They developed specialized stone tools. They hunted large animals. They understood their environment in ways that allowed them to endure conditions many modern people would find terrifying. Imagine standing beside one of their hunting parties. The air is bitterly cold. A massive animal moves across an open plain. There are no rifles, no vehicles, no binoculars, only skill, planning, courage, and cooperation. Every hunt carries risk. A single mistake can mean serious injury or death. Yet Neanderthals repeatedly succeeded. Evidence suggests they cared for wounded individuals as well. Archaeologists have discovered skeletons showing signs of severe injuries that healed long before death. This means injured people were supported by others. Someone brought them food. Someone protected them. Someone helped them survive. Compassion, it seems, has deep roots in human history. But Neanderthals were not the only humans sharing the world. Scientists eventually discovered traces of another mysterious population. The discovery happened almost by accident. In a cave located in Siberia, researchers found a small fragment of bone. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, just another ancient piece of evidence. Yet when scientists extracted DNA, they uncovered something astonishing. The bone belonged neither to a modern human nor to a Neanderthal. Instead, it represented an entirely different group now known as the Denisovans. Even today, much about the Denisovans remains mysterious. Only a limited number of physical remains have been found. Yet their genetic legacy survives. People living in parts of Asia and Oceania still carry Denisovan ancestry today. Without modern genetic technology, researchers might never have known these ancient humans existed. Suddenly, the human family tree became far more crowded than anyone expected. Instead of a single line leading neatly from the past to the present, scientists found a network of related populations. Groups separated, groups reunited, groups mixed, groups disappeared. The story looked less like a straight road and more like countless winding paths crossing one another through time. Then came another surprise. Modern humans and Neanderthals did not merely encounter one another. They had children together. For generations, many scientists assumed no such mixing occurred. DNA proved otherwise. Today, most people whose ancestry traces partly to Europe or Asia carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. That means somewhere in the distant past, modern humans and Neanderthals met not as enemies alone, but also as families. Imagine that moment. Two populations that had evolved separately for hundreds of thousands of years encounter one another. They look somewhat different. They speak differently. Their traditions differ. Yet they recognize something familiar. They recognize humanity. The details of those meetings remain hidden from us. No written records survive. No eyewitness accounts exist. Only fragments of bones, tools, and genetic evidence remain. Yet those fragments reveal connections stretching across unimaginable spans of time. The same pattern appears with Denisovans. Certain populations today possess genetic traits inherited from Denisovan ancestors. Some of these genes may have helped people adapt to high-altitude environments. In places such as the Tibetan Plateau, inherited genetic variations appear to assist survival where oxygen levels are low. Ancient encounters left lasting marks that continue influencing human lives thousands of years later. As scientists piece together these discoveries, the traditional idea of race became increasingly difficult to defend from a biological perspective. Human variation exists. Nobody denies that. People clearly look different. But those differences do not fit neatly into fixed categories. Traits vary gradually across geography. Genetic diversity often exists within populations as much as between them. The boundaries people draw are usually much sharper than nature itself. Imagine looking at a rainbow. You can point to blue. You can point to green. Yet where exactly does blue end and green begin? The transition is gradual. Human variation often works similarly. Features change across regions over long distances. The closer researchers look, the more complexity they find. Meanwhile, ancient humans continued spreading across the globe. One of the most remarkable chapters involved the settlement of Australia. Human ancestors reached the continent tens of thousands of years ago. To accomplish this, they had to cross stretches of open water. This required planning, cooperation, and technology. Even the earliest voyages suggest impressive capabilities. The people who reached Australia entered landscapes unlike any they had previously known. They adapted. They developed cultures deeply connected to the land. Many indigenous Australian traditions preserve knowledge stretching back astonishing lengths of time. Some oral histories may contain memories linked to environmental changes that occurred thousands of years ago. Then there was the Americas. Exactly how and when humans first entered the continents remains an active area of research. Evidence continues to evolve. Yet it is clear that people eventually spread throughout North and South America, reaching environments ranging from Arctic tundra to tropical rainforest. The speed and scale of these migrations remain extraordinary. Human beings cross mountains, rivers, deserts, forests, and coastlines. They adapted repeatedly. They survived repeatedly. Every region shaped the people who lived there. Every population carried pieces of earlier journeys. And despite the distances separating them, all remained connected through shared ancestry reaching back to Africa. The deeper researchers dug into the past, the more interconnected humanity appeared. Differences remained real. Adaptations remained real. Cultures remained unique. Yet the divisions people often focused on seemed far smaller than the connections beneath them. Still, another question lingered. If humans were spreading into every corner of the world, adapting to radically different climates and environments, How exactly did those environments continue shaping bodies over thousands of years? The answer would lead scientists into deserts, frozen landscapes, dense forests, and some of the harshest places humans have ever called home. The world that shaped human beings was never gentle for very long. A season of abundance could be followed by drought. A familiar hunting ground could suddenly become barren. A river might change course. A forest could disappear. A coastline could slowly retreat. Generation after generation, humans found themselves adjusting to conditions they did not control. Imagine waking before sunrise somewhere in northern Eurasia thousands of years ago. The air is sharp with cold. A thin layer of ice covers the edges of a stream. Your shelter blocks some of the wind, but not all of it. The people around you know winter well. Their parents knew it. Their grandparents knew it. Every year brings the same challenge. Food becomes harder to find. Travel becomes more dangerous. The cold demands respect. Humans living in such regions depended heavily on knowledge. They learned which animals migrated, and when. They learned how to preserve food. They learned how to build warmer shelters and sew more effective clothing. Yet over many thousands of years, biology also played a role. Certain physical traits became more common in some environments than in others. One example involves body shape. Researchers have long observed patterns suggesting that populations living in colder climates often tended to have stockier builds, while populations in hotter climates often tended to have slimmer builds. These trends are not absolute rules. Human variation is always complex, but the basic principle relates to heat. Bodies lose heat through surface area. A compact body generally retains heat more efficiently than a taller, thinner one. Natural selection did not create identical people. Instead, it influenced probabilities across many generations. The process was gradual, subtle, and often invisible within a single lifetime. Now, imagine a completely different environment. The blazing heat of an equatorial region. The midday sun stands high overhead. Humidity hangs in the air. The challenge here is not retaining warmth. The challenge is avoiding overheating. Human beings possess a remarkable adaptation that helped make survival possible in such conditions. We sweat. Compared with many mammals, humans are exceptionally effective at cooling themselves through perspiration. This ability allowed early humans to remain active in hot environments where other animals might struggle. The evolutionary significance of sweating is difficult to overstate. Combined with endurance and intelligence, it gave humans unusual advantages. Ancient hunters could sometimes pursue prey over long distances, relying on stamina rather than pure speed. The hunt became a test of endurance. The animal ran. The humans followed. Again and again. Hour after hour. The sun beat down on both. Eventually, exhaustion favored the hunters. Such strategies required cooperation, planning, and communication. Climate shaped countless aspects of daily life. It influenced where people lived, what they ate, how they traveled, what tools they created, which diseases they encountered. Consider tropical environments. Warm temperatures can support a wide variety of parasites and infectious diseases. Populations living in these regions faced biological pressures different from those experienced in colder areas. Over time, certain genetic adaptations related to disease resistance became more common. One of the most famous examples involves malaria. Malaria has influenced human evolution in profound ways. In regions where the disease was common, genetic variations that provided some protection often became more widespread despite carrying disadvantages of their own. This illustrates a recurring theme in evolution. Adaptations are often compromises. There is rarely a perfect solution. A trait that helps in one situation may create problems in another. Nature works with trade-offs, not perfection. Another fascinating example can be found at high elevations. Imagine standing thousands of feet above sea level. The sky appears intensely blue. The landscape stretches for miles. Yet every breath contains less oxygen than it would near the ocean. For newcomers, the effects can be unpleasant. Headaches, fatigue, shortness of breath. But populations that lived for countless generations in such environments often developed adaptations that improved survival. Scientists studying communities in places such as Tibet, Ethiopia, and the Andes discovered different solutions to the same problem. Remarkably, separate populations evolved different biological responses to low oxygen levels. This demonstrates an important principle. Evolution does not always arrive at identical answers. Different paths can lead to successful outcomes. The environment presents a challenge. Various solutions emerge. Whichever solutions improve survival are more likely to persist. Meanwhile, geography itself shaped the movement of people. Mountains created barriers. Oceans separated populations. Deserts restricted travel. Dense forests slowed migration. These obstacles influenced how often groups interacted. Sometimes communities remained relatively isolated for long periods. At other times, trade routes connected distant populations across astonishing distances. The Silk Road is one famous example, though it appeared much later in history. Goods traveled. Ideas traveled. Languages mixed. Religions spread. People encountered strangers whose customs seemed unfamiliar. Human history became a story of both separation and connection. The same pattern can be seen in food. Diet varied dramatically depending on environment. Coastal communities often relied heavily on seafood. Grassland populations might depend more on herd animals. Forest communities gathered different plants than those living in deserts. These dietary differences sometimes influenced biological adaptation as well. For example, populations with long histories of agriculture often experienced different evolutionary pressures than populations dependent primarily on hunting and gathering. The rise of farming changed human life profoundly. Roughly 12,000 years ago, certain groups began domesticating plants and animals. This process occurred independently in multiple regions. The consequences were enormous. Permanent settlements became more common. Populations grew larger. Cities eventually emerged. Civilizations appeared. But farming also introduced new challenges. Living in close proximity to animals increased opportunities for diseases to jump between species. Crowded settlements allowed illnesses to spread more easily. Nutritional patterns changed. Work routines changed. Human bodies and societies adapted together. When people think about evolution, they often imagine dramatic transformations. Yet much of the process involves countless small adjustments accumulating over time. A slightly better ability to process a certain food. A small advantage against a disease. A tiny improvement in surviving a harsh climate. None of these changes seem remarkable alone. But over thousands of years, they can shape entire populations. The story of human color follows the same principle. Skin pigmentation evolved in response to environmental pressures, but it never acted alone. It existed alongside countless other adaptations, many invisible to the eye. As genetic research advanced, scientists uncovered another surprising truth. Many traits that appear simple are actually influenced by numerous genes interacting together. There is no single skin color gene, no single hair gene, no single appearance gene. Human biology is extraordinarily complex. This complexity helps explain why people often defy simple categories. Families themselves demonstrate this reality. Siblings can inherit different combinations of genetic traits. Children may resemble one parent more than another. Features can reappear after skipping generations. Human inheritance is a fascinating mosaic. Every person represents a unique combination of ancestral influences stretching back through time. And those ancestors lived through events far more dramatic than most people realize. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive migrations, changing climates, emerging civilizations, ancient pandemics. Each generation passed something forward. Not only genes, not only culture, but also stories, memories, beliefs, ways of understanding the world. Yet among all the forces that shaped humanity, perhaps none transformed our appearance and societies more dramatically than movement itself. Because once humans began migrating across continents, they set in motion journeys that would connect distant populations in ways nobody could have predicted, creating the foundations of the modern world we know today. Long before passports, national borders, or maps hanging on classroom walls, human beings were travelers, not tourists, not explorers seeking fame, not adventurers searching for fortune. Most people moved because survival demanded it. A herd changed its route, a river dried up, a climate shifted, food became scarce, a neighboring group expanded into the same territory. The reasons varied, but movement remained one of the defining features of human history. Imagine standing on a windswept grassland thousands of years ago. The horizon seems endless. No roads cut across the landscape. No signs point toward distant destinations. Yet families begin gathering their possessions. Children walk beside parents. Elders carry memories of places left behind. Dogs trot alongside the group. Everyone knows that remaining where they are may be more dangerous than moving forward. And so another migration begins. Most migrations did not feel historic at the time. People were not thinking about future textbooks. They were thinking about tomorrow's meal, about keeping children safe, about finding water, about surviving another season. Yet these countless small movements gradually reshaped the human world. Over centuries and millennia, populations spread farther and farther. Some followed coastlines. Others crossed valleys and mountain passes. A few ventured into regions no human being had ever seen before. The descendants of those travelers would eventually populate nearly every environment on Earth. One of the most remarkable aspects of human migration is how slowly it often occurred. Modern people can cross continents in hours. Ancient migrations sometimes unfolded over hundreds of years. A family might move only a short distance during a lifetime. Their grandchildren moved farther. Their descendants farther still. After many generations, populations found themselves thousands of miles from ancestral homelands. No single person experienced the entire journey. Yet collectively, humanity was always moving. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of these movements through tools, pottery, bones, and increasingly through genetics. DNA has become one of the most powerful tools for understanding ancient migrations. Inside living people today are clues about journeys that occurred thousands of years ago. Genes preserve echoes of ancient encounters. They reveal connections that written records never captured. In many cases, populations once believed to be completely separate turn out to share surprising ancestry. The deeper scientists investigate, the more interconnected human history becomes. Consider Europe. Many people imagine modern European populations as direct descendants of a single ancient group. The reality is far more complicated. Genetic evidence suggests multiple waves of migration influenced the continent. Hunter-gatherers lived there after the Ice Age. Later came farming populations moving from regions farther south and east. Still later, additional migrations reshaped the genetic landscape again. The Europe of today emerged from countless mixtures and movements over thousands of years. A similar story appears almost everywhere researchers look. Human history is rarely a story of pure isolation. It is usually a story of contact. Contact sometimes brought cooperation, sometimes trade, sometimes conflict, often all three. Along ancient routes, ideas traveled with people. A new tool design could spread across vast distances. A farming technique might transform entire regions. Languages evolved as communities interacted. Cultures borrowed from one another constantly. Even groups that considered themselves completely different often shared technologies and knowledge. The movement of people also influenced appearance. When populations met and mixed, genetic traits spread into new regions. This process continues today. Human beings have always exchanged genes along with goods and ideas. The modern world often treats migration as something unusual or recent. From the perspective of history, movement is one of humanity's oldest traditions. For tens of thousands of years, people have been arriving, leaving, adapting, and beginning again. Imagine a small settlement near a river several thousand years ago. Children play near the water. Farmers tend crops. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Life appears stable. Then strangers arrive. Perhaps they come peacefully. Perhaps cautiously. Maybe they bring unfamiliar tools. Maybe they speak a different language. At first, both groups observe one another carefully. Yet, over time relationships form. Trade begins. Knowledge is exchanged. Families intermingle. Generations later, the descendants of both groups may no longer remember exactly where the boundaries once existed. This process happened repeatedly throughout history. The result is that modern populations often contain ancestry from numerous ancient groups. When people search for a single origin, they frequently discover many origins instead. Human history resembles braided rivers rather than straight lines. Streams divide. Streams reconnect. Water flows in multiple directions. The same is true of ancestry. As migrations expanded, environments continued shaping those who entered them. People arriving in northern regions encountered long winters and shorter growing seasons. Those moving into deserts learned entirely different survival strategies. Others adapted to dense forests where visibility was limited and resources varied dramatically from season to season. Every landscape taught lessons. Every landscape demanded adjustment. Yet humans possess something unique. Unlike most animals, we could modify our environment as well. We built shelters. We stored food. We controlled fire. We created clothing. We crafted tools. These cultural innovations allowed humans to survive conditions that might otherwise have been impossible. A person born in a cold region did not need to wait thousands of years for evolution to provide protection. A warm coat could help immediately. This ability accelerated humanity's expansion across the planet. Culture became a powerful partner to biology. Together, they transformed human possibilities. The relationship between culture and appearance can sometimes be surprising. For example, clothing reduced direct exposure to environmental conditions. Housing altered daily life. Food preparation changed nutritional patterns. As societies became more complex, cultural solutions increasingly influenced survival. Yet biology never disappeared from the story. Genes and culture evolved together in fascinating ways. Researchers call this process gene-culture coevolution. The ability of some populations to digest milk as adults is one example. The development of dairy farming created a new food source. Genetic adaptations that improved milk digestion then became more common in certain populations. Culture created the opportunity. Biology responded. The two processes became linked. This interaction appears repeatedly throughout human history. The same species that painted caves and hunted mammoths eventually built cities and civilizations. Yet the people living in those cities still carried traces of ancient adaptations shaped by distant ancestors. Even today, the story remains visible. Skin color continues reflecting ancient relationships with sunlight. Certain genetic traits reflect past environments. Disease resistance sometimes reflects historical exposures. The past survives within us in countless ways. And still, many mysteries remain. Scientists continue discovering new details every year. Ancient DNA studies regularly overturn assumptions once considered certain. Human history is not a finished puzzle. New pieces continue appearing. Some discoveries reveal forgotten migrations. Others uncover lost populations. A few completely transform our understanding of the past. Perhaps the most fascinating lesson is that humanity cannot be reduced to simple categories. Every population contains complexity. Every individual contains history. Each person walking through a modern city carries a biological archive stretching back through thousands of generations. Inside every family tree lie migrations, adaptations, encounters, and survival stories extending far beyond memory. And as agriculture spread, cities emerged, and civilizations rose along great rivers, human differences became intertwined with something even more powerful than geography or climate. They became intertwined with identity itself, how people saw themselves, how they viewed outsiders, and how those ideas would shape the course of history for centuries to come. As human communities grew larger and more settled, something began to change. For most of history, people lived in relatively small groups. A person might know nearly everyone in their community. Faces were familiar. Families were connected through generations of shared experience. But as villages expanded into towns, and towns eventually became cities, human societies grew far more complex. Imagine approaching an ancient city for the first time. Dust rises from busy roads. Merchants call out from market stalls. Animals move through crowded streets. Foreign travelers arrive carrying goods from distant regions. Languages mingle in the air. The city feels alive. For someone whose ancestors spent thousands of years living in small communities, such a place would have seemed astonishing. Civilization created opportunities unlike anything humanity had previously experienced. Trade flourished. Knowledge accumulated. Technology advanced. Writing emerged. Governments formed. Religious institutions expanded. Yet these developments also changed how people thought about one another. In small groups, identity was often personal. You knew who someone was because you knew them directly. In larger societies, people increasingly categorize others according to language, place of origin, religion, occupation, or appearance. The larger the society became, the more useful such categories seemed, at least from the perspective of those living within them. Ancient civilizations frequently distinguished between insiders and outsiders. The labels varied. The attitudes varied, but the pattern appeared again and again. People naturally formed groups. Those groups often developed strong senses of belonging. At times, this created cooperation and social stability. At other times, it created suspicion toward strangers. The story can be found across many civilizations. Ancient kingdoms in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas all developed ways of defining who belonged and who did not. Yet these identities were usually based less on skin color than many modern people assume. Language, religion, culture, and political allegiance often mattered far more. A traveler could sometimes become part of a new society by adopting its customs. Identity was frequently more flexible than later generations would imagine. Take the ancient world surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. People moved constantly. Merchants crossed oceans. Armies traveled enormous distances. Enslaved individuals were transported between regions. Pilgrims journeyed to sacred places. The result was extraordinary diversity. Ancient cities often contained populations from multiple continents. To modernize, such diversity can be surprising because history is sometimes portrayed as though ancient societies were isolated and uniform. The evidence suggests otherwise. Many ancient cities were remarkably interconnected. Ships carried goods across seas. Caravans crossed deserts. Roads linked distant territories. Human movement continued shaping societies just as it always had. One of the most influential civilizations in this story was the Roman Empire. At its height, Roman territory stretched across enormous regions. People from Africa, Europe, and parts of Asia interacted within a shared political system. Soldiers stationed far from home encountered unfamiliar cultures. Merchants introduced foreign products into local markets. Families formed across regional boundaries. The empire became a vast network of human connections. Yet despite these interactions, physical appearance remained only one aspect of identity among many. Ancient records reveal that people often focused on nationality, citizenship, social class, language, and religion. The categories dominating modern discussions did not always function in the same way. This reminds us that ideas about human differences change over time. The traits people emphasize today are not necessarily the traits emphasized in the past. As centuries passed, migrations continued reshaping populations. Empires rose and fell. Trade routes shifted. New religions spread. Entire regions experienced demographic change. The world remained dynamic, rarely still. Consider Europe after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Various groups moved across the continent. Kingdoms emerged. Borders shifted repeatedly. Communities mixed and remixed over generations. The idea that modern populations remained unchanged for thousands of years simply does not match historical evidence. Movement remained constant. The same pattern unfolded elsewhere. Across Africa, powerful kingdoms expanded and contracted. Trade routes connected regions separated by vast distances. The Sahara Desert, often imagined as an impassable barrier, became part of an extensive network linking communities through commerce and cultural exchange. Gold, salt, ideas, technologies, and people moved along these routes. In Asia, trade connected enormous populations across mountains, deserts, forests, and coastlines. The exchange of goods brought the exchange of knowledge. Paper, printing techniques, agricultural innovations, and countless other developments traveled between societies. Human history increasingly became a story of interconnected worlds. Yet despite all this contact, misunderstandings persisted. People often viewed unfamiliar customs with suspicion. Foreign languages sounded strange. Different clothing seemed unusual. Religious practices appeared mysterious. The human tendency to divide the world into familiar and unfamiliar remained powerful. Still, curiosity frequently overcame fear. Travelers documented places they had never seen before. Merchants learned new languages. Diplomats negotiated across cultural boundaries. Explorers recorded observations about distant peoples. Some accounts were accurate. Others reflected misunderstandings or biases. These records reveal as much about the observers as the people they described. Throughout history, humans have often struggled to interpret differences objectively. The challenge continues even today. Another important development emerged as civilizations grew. Written records allowed ideas about identity to persist across generations. Stories could be preserved. Laws could be recorded. Beliefs could spread beyond direct personal experience. This transformed societies in profound ways. Ideas became powerful historical forces. Sometimes those ideas promoted cooperation. Sometimes they justified inequality. The consequences could last for centuries. Meanwhile, beneath all these social changes, the biological reality remained the same. Human populations continued exchanging genes. People married across communities. Families formed across cultural boundaries. Movement continued. Adaptation continued. The human story remained interconnected regardless of political divisions. Modern genetics has repeatedly confirmed this reality. Many populations thought to be distinct reveal evidence of extensive historical mixing. The farther researchers look into the past, the harder it becomes to find clear boundaries. Human history is filled with transitions rather than sharp divisions. This complexity frustrates simple explanations. Yet it also reveals something remarkable. Human diversity emerged not because populations existed separately forever, but because populations repeatedly interacted while adapting to different environments. Difference and connection developed together. Neither can be understood without the other. By the late medieval period and into the early modern era, technological advances would allow people to travel farther than ever before. Ships grew more capable. Navigation improved. Knowledge accumulated. Entire oceans that once seemed impossibly vast became routes connecting distant continents. The consequences would transform the world. For the first time in history, populations separated for thousands of years would encounter one another on an unprecedented scale. Those encounters would reshape ideas about identity, ancestry, appearance, and human difference in ways that still influence society today. As the 15th century gave way to the 16th, the world was becoming smaller, not because continents moved closer together, but because human beings were finding new ways to cross the distances between them. Imagine standing on a wooden dock before sunrise. The air smells of salt and wet timber. Large sailing ships rock gently against their moorings. Sailors carry barrels, rope, tools, and supplies onto the decks. Families gather to say goodbye. Some of these voyages will last months. Others may never return. No one standing there can fully understand how much the world is about to change. For thousands of years, oceans had separated many human populations. People certainly traveled by sea before this period, sometimes across remarkable distances. But improvements in navigation, shipbuilding, and geographic knowledge dramatically expanded what was possible. Suddenly, journeys that once seemed unimaginable became achievable. The consequences would reach every inhabited continent. When European explorers crossed the Atlantic and established lasting connections with the Americas, they initiated one of the most transformative periods in human history. Entire worlds that had developed separately for thousands of years were now interacting directly. The encounter affected everyone involved. It changed economies. It changed ecosystems. It changed politics. It changed populations. And it changed ideas about human difference. Before these encounters, many societies possessed only limited knowledge of people living on distant continents. Information traveled slowly. Descriptions were often incomplete. Rumors mixed with facts. Maps contained large blank spaces. The wider world remained mysterious. That mystery began disappearing. Sailors, merchants, missionaries, soldiers, settlers, and scholars carried observations back and forth across oceans. For the first time, people in many regions found themselves confronting the full scale of human diversity. Yet understanding did not always follow observation. In fact, some of the most influential misunderstandings in history emerged during this era. Imagine a traveler arriving in a land unlike anything they have ever seen. The plants are unfamiliar. The animals are unfamiliar. The languages sound completely different. The customs seem strange. Faced with so much novelty, people often interpret what they see through the assumptions they already possess. This tendency is deeply human. Throughout history, observers frequently described unfamiliar societies using the values and beliefs of their own culture. As a result, early accounts often mixed careful observations with significant misunderstandings. The age of global exploration intensified these patterns. At the same time, something else was happening. The movement of people increased dramatically. Millions of individuals crossed oceans over the following centuries. Some traveled voluntarily, others were forced. No discussion of human diversity can ignore one of the darkest chapters in this story, the transatlantic slave trade. Beginning in the 15th century and expanding enormously over time, millions of Africans were captured, transported, and enslaved. Families were separated. Communities were disrupted. Lives were permanently altered. The scale of suffering remains difficult to comprehend. Entire generations experienced unimaginable hardship. Yet even in these circumstances, people preserved culture, language, traditions, skills, music, and resilience. The legacy of those experiences continues to shape societies today. The slave trade also influenced how people thought about human differences. In earlier periods, societies certainly practiced slavery. It existed in many parts of the world throughout history. However, the transatlantic system became increasingly tied to ideas about ancestry and physical appearance. Over time, these ideas hardened into racial categories that many people began treating as natural and permanent. Modern science has demonstrated that such categories oversimplify human biology. Yet their historical influence became enormous. Laws were written around them. Institutions were built around them. Generations grew up believing them. The effects would endure long after the original systems changed. Meanwhile, new populations emerged throughout the Americas. People from Europe, Africa, and indigenous American communities interacted in countless ways. Families formed, cultures blended, languages evolved, foods combined ingredients from multiple continents. Music incorporated influences from diverse traditions. Human history once again demonstrated its tendency toward connection and mixture. The result was complexity, far greater complexity than simple categories could ever capture. As centuries passed, scholars attempted to classify humanity. Some genuinely sought understanding. Others attempted to justify existing social hierarchies. Without modern genetics, many relied primarily on visible traits. Skin color attracted particular attention because it was easy to observe. Yet appearance alone provides only a limited picture of human variation. Scientists today know that populations sharing similar skin tones may differ genetically in many ways, while populations with different appearances can share substantial ancestry. The visible surface often hides a far more intricate reality. Consider how easily appearance can mislead. Two individuals may look very different, yet be closely related. Two individuals may look similar, yet have ancestors from entirely different regions. Human genetics rarely follows simple expectations. As knowledge expanded, naturalists and early scientists attempted to organize humanity into categories. These systems often reflected the assumptions of their era. Some classifications emphasized geography, others emphasized appearance. Many oversimplified reality. Yet for a time, such ideas became influential. People naturally seek patterns. The challenge is that nature does not always cooperate with human desires for neat organization. Human variation tends to be gradual, overlapping, and interconnected. Sharp boundaries often exist more clearly in textbooks than in biology. By the 18th and 19th centuries, scientific understanding was advancing rapidly in some areas while remaining limited in others. Researchers accumulated enormous amounts of information about anatomy, geography, and natural history. Yet they still lacked one crucial tool. They did not understand genetics. Without knowledge of DNA, inheritance remained partly mysterious. Many theories about human differences relied on incomplete evidence. Some conclusions would later prove incorrect. Others contained fragments of truth mixed with misunderstanding. History often advances this way. Knowledge grows gradually. Old assumptions are questioned. New evidence emerges. Ideas evolve. The story of human color and human diversity would eventually be transformed by discoveries no one living at that time could have imagined. Deep within every cell of the human body existed information waiting to be decoded. A biological record stretching back through countless generations. A record capable of revealing connections hidden beneath centuries of assumption. And once scientists learned how to read that record, many long-held beliefs about human difference would face their greatest challenge yet. For thousands of years, people could only guess how traits were passed from parents to children. They could observe patterns. A child might inherit a father's height. A daughter might resemble her grandmother. Certain features seemed to run through families, but nobody understood exactly why. The mechanism remained hidden. Imagine walking through a village 200 years ago. Families have lived there for generations. People notice similarities among relatives. They tell stories about family resemblances. They recognize inherited characteristics. Yet if someone asked how those traits moved from one generation to the next, no one could provide a complete answer. The secret lay inside every living cell, waiting to be discovered. The breakthrough began quietly. In the mid-19th century, an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel spent years studying pea plants. His work did not seem revolutionary at first. He carefully tracked traits across generations. He counted. He recorded. He compared results. The process was patient and methodical. What Mendel uncovered would eventually form the foundation of modern genetics. Traits followed patterns. Inheritance was not random. Information passed from parents to offspring according to rules that scientists would spend decades unraveling. Yet even Mendel could not see genes. The technology did not exist. He understood patterns long before researchers understood the physical structures responsible for them. The full story would take many more years. Then came one of the most important scientific discoveries in history. Researchers eventually identified DNA, the molecule carrying genetic information. Suddenly, humanity possessed a way to investigate ancestry, inheritance, and biological relationships with unprecedented precision. The implications were enormous. Questions that had puzzled scholars for centuries could now be explored scientifically. Imagine scientists opening a vast library hidden inside every human being. Each cell contains instructions inherited through countless generations. Not a perfect record, not a complete biography, but a remarkable archive nonetheless. The more researchers examined DNA, the more surprising the results became. Many assumptions about human difference began collapsing under the weight of evidence. One of the most important findings involved genetic similarity. People often focus on visible differences because they are easy to notice. Skin color, hair texture, eye shape, facial features. Yet when scientists compared DNA from populations around the world, they discovered something extraordinary. Humans are overwhelmingly similar. The vast majority of genetic information is shared across all populations. The traits attracting the most attention often represent only a tiny portion of our overall biology. This finding challenged many older ideas. For centuries, some people had imagined human populations as fundamentally separate categories. Genetics painted a different picture. The evidence revealed deep connections linking all living humans. Those connections extended far beyond recorded history. Researchers eventually traced modern human ancestry back to Africa, where our species originated. This did not mean every modern population remained unchanged from ancient times. Far from it. Migration, adaptation, and mixing shaped humanity continuously. But the evidence strongly supported a shared origin. The human family tree possessed many branches. Yet all those branches ultimately connected. Imagine looking at a giant oak tree. Some branches stretch east. Others stretch west. Some grow high. Others remain low. From a distance, they may appear separate. But beneath the bark, the same tree supports them all. Humanity resembles that image more closely than many people once realized. DNA also revealed surprising details about migration. Ancient movements that left little archaeological evidence sometimes left genetic traces. Researchers could detect connections between populations separated by thousands of miles. Unexpected relationships emerged. Old theories were revised. Entire chapters of human history were rewritten. For example, genetic studies helped confirm that modern humans carry traces of Neanderthal ancestry. When this idea first emerged, it surprised many experts. Earlier generations had often imagined Neanderthals as entirely separate from us. DNA told a more complicated story. Ancient encounters had left biological evidence, still visible today. The same happened with Denisovans. Tiny fragments of ancient bones revealed connections stretching across tens of thousands of years. The past was not disappearing. It remained embedded within living people. Another major discovery involved the nature of skin color itself. For centuries, many assumed skin pigmentation was controlled by a simple biological mechanism. The reality proved far more complex. Multiple genes influence pigmentation. Different populations sometimes evolved lighter or darker skin through different genetic pathways. In other words, similar appearances could emerge through different evolutionary routes. Nature often solves the same problem in multiple ways. Scientists also discovered that skin color changes surprisingly quickly in evolutionary terms. Compared with some traits, pigmentation can respond relatively rapidly to environmental pressures. As populations moved into regions with different sunlight levels, natural selection influenced pigmentation over time. This helps explain why skin color often correlates with geography and ultraviolet radiation exposure. The relationship is not perfect. Human migration has become increasingly complex. Modern societies contain people whose recent ancestors lived in many different regions. But the underlying evolutionary pattern remains clear. Sunlight played a powerful role. Importantly, these discoveries undermined attempts to rank human populations according to appearance. Biology simply does not support such rankings. Visible traits tell only a small part of the story. No population possesses a monopoly on intelligence, creativity, adaptability, or human potential. The scientific evidence points toward variation within humanity rather than separate levels of humanity. Researchers found diversity everywhere they looked, even within individual populations, even within individual families. Human variation is one of our defining characteristics. At the same time, scientists learned that appearance can sometimes reflect recent ancestry more than deeper biological differences. Two people may share common ancestors surprisingly recently despite looking very different. Conversely, individuals with similar appearances may have family histories that diverged long ago. Human genetics repeatedly demonstrates that surface impressions can be misleading. The deeper researchers explored DNA, the more fascinating the story became. Genes revealed migrations, ancient population bottlenecks, adaptations to disease, responses to climate, hidden relationships among distant communities. Every new discovery added detail to the human journey. Yet perhaps the most profound lesson was philosophical rather than biological. The evidence suggested that human differences and human similarities are not opposing realities. Both exist simultaneously. We are diverse. We are connected. We are shaped by different histories. Yet we remain members of the same species, sharing ancestors whose lives unfolded long before nations, religions, and modern identities existed. Still, genetics was only one piece of the puzzle. To truly understand why humans became different colors and developed different characteristics, researchers also needed to understand something equally important: the environments that shaped those changes over thousands upon thousands of years. Because climate itself, sometimes slowly, sometimes dramatically, has been one of the greatest architects of human history. Long before kings ruled kingdoms, before cities rose beside rivers, and before written words recorded human memories, another force was shaping our story. It was not a person, not an empire, not a religion. It was climate. Invisible at times, overwhelming at others, climate quietly influenced where humans lived, what they ate, how they traveled, and eventually even how they looked. Imagine Earth near the end of the last ice age. The world is familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. The continents occupy roughly the same positions they do today. The mountains stand where we expect them. Many rivers still flow through ancient valleys. Yet enormous differences exist. Great sheets of ice cover vast areas of the northern hemisphere. Sea levels are lower. Coastlines lie miles beyond their modern locations. Entire landscapes visible today are hidden beneath water, while land now submerged once supported human communities. To people living then, this world was simply normal. No one called it an ice age. No one knew they were part of a climatic chapter that future scientists would study thousands of years later. They simply adapted to the conditions around them. The challenge of survival touched every aspect of life. Food sources shifted with the seasons. Animals migrated across changing environments. Plants appeared and disappeared according to temperature and rainfall. A successful community needed knowledge. Not just strength, not just courage. Knowledge. Knowing where resources could be found often meant the difference between survival and starvation. Now, imagine the climate beginning to change. Not overnight. Not even within a single generation. But slowly enough that each generation notices subtle differences. A valley once covered by ice becomes habitable. A coastline moves. A forest expands. A grassland shrinks. These changes create opportunities and challenges simultaneously. Humans respond by doing what they have always done. They move. Again and again throughout history, climate has acted as a silent partner in migration. When conditions improved, populations expanded. When conditions worsened, communities searched for alternatives. The movement of people across continents often followed environmental change. This relationship helps explain why human history and climate history are so deeply connected. Scientists studying ancient climates use remarkable tools. Ice cores drilled from glaciers preserve tiny samples of ancient atmospheres. Tree rings record environmental conditions year by year. Lake sediments accumulate evidence over thousands of years. Together, these records allow researchers to reconstruct climates from long before written history. What they reveal is a world in constant motion. Climate has never been perfectly stable. Warm periods and cool periods alternated. Rainfall patterns shifted. Ecosystems transformed. Human populations adapted continuously. Some adaptations were cultural. Others were biological. Most involved both. Consider once more the story of skin color. The connection between pigmentation and sunlight becomes clearer when viewed through the lens of climate. Near the equator, ultraviolet radiation remains relatively intense throughout the year. In these environments, darker pigmentation provided important protective advantages. Farther from the equator, sunlight grows weaker, especially during winter months. Different environmental pressures emerged. Over long periods, populations adapted accordingly. The result was the remarkable range of pigmentation observed today. Yet climate influenced much more than skin. It shaped diets. It affected disease patterns. It determined agricultural possibilities. It influenced settlement locations. Entire civilizations depended upon environmental conditions. Think about the great river civilizations. Reliable water sources supported farming. Farming supported larger populations. Larger populations supported cities. Cities supported governments, trade networks, and specialized occupations. Environmental conditions made these developments possible. This does not mean climate determined everything. Human choices always mattered. Innovation mattered. Leadership mattered. Culture mattered. But environmental circumstances created opportunities and limitations that societies had to navigate. One striking example involves drought. Throughout history, prolonged droughts have contributed to social disruption in many regions. Crops fail. Food supplies diminish. Competition increases. Communities may relocate. Political systems sometimes weaken under pressure. Historians continue debating the exact role of climate in specific events, but few doubt its importance. Nature has always been an active participant in human affairs. The same principle applies to disease. Environmental conditions influence which diseases thrive in particular regions. Mosquito-borne illnesses, for example, require certain ecological conditions. Populations living in areas where such diseases were common often faced evolutionary pressures different from those living elsewhere. Over generations, genetic adaptations sometimes emerged. Again, biology and environment interacted. Neither acted alone. Climate also influenced the development of technology. People living in cold regions created solutions suited to cold environments. People living in hot deserts developed different technologies. Coastal communities mastered maritime skills. Mountain populations adapted to rugged terrain. Innovation frequently reflected local circumstances. A tool perfectly suited to one environment might be useless in another. This diversity of experience contributed to humanity's extraordinary range of cultural traditions. As civilizations expanded, some regions experienced periods of favorable climate that supported population growth and economic development. Others endured environmental stress. Success and hardship often reflected complex combinations of natural and human factors. No single explanation ever tells the whole story. History rarely works that way. Yet climate remains one of the most powerful background forces. Most people living today rarely think about how dependent human societies remain on environmental conditions. Food still depends on climate. Water still depends on climate. Infrastructure still depends on climate. The relationship has not disappeared. It has merely become easier to overlook. Ancient people understood this connection more directly because survival often depended upon recognizing environmental changes quickly. A failed harvest could not be ignored. A changing river could not be ignored. A prolonged drought could not be ignored. Nature demanded attention. Perhaps this explains why so many ancient cultures developed stories, rituals, and beliefs connected to weather, seasons, rivers, and the land itself. Environmental forces shaped daily experience in profound ways. Even today, traces of those relationships remain visible in traditions around the world. As scientists continue studying ancient climates, new discoveries regularly emerge. Researchers learn more about migration patterns, more about adaptation, more about how environmental change influenced human history. Each discovery adds another layer to our understanding. The story becomes increasingly detailed, increasingly interconnected, and increasingly fascinating. Because when we examine humanity closely enough, we find that differences in appearance are only one small part of a much larger narrative. A narrative involving movement, survival, cooperation, adaptation, and resilience across countless generations. And nowhere is that resilience more visible than in the ways human beings learned to transform the landscapes around them, eventually creating civilizations capable of reshaping entire environments in return. As the great climatic changes of the past slowly settled into more familiar patterns, human beings began doing something that would alter their relationship with nature forever. For hundreds of thousands of years, people had mostly adapted themselves to the environment. Now, increasingly, they began adapting the environment to themselves. Imagine a broad river valley thousands of years ago. The morning sun rises over fields that did not exist a few generations earlier. Rows of cultivated plants stretch across the landscape. People carry tools instead of hunting spears. Children help gather crops. Animals live in enclosures near settlements. The scene represents one of the most important transformations in human history. Agriculture. The shift did not happen everywhere at the same time, nor did it occur for exactly the same reasons in every region. Different communities experimented with different plants and animals. Some efforts succeeded, others failed. Over many generations, farming gradually became a central part of life in numerous parts of the world. The consequences were enormous. A successful farming community could often support more people than a hunting and gathering community occupying the same area. Food could sometimes be stored. Settlements could become permanent. Populations grew. Villages expanded. Towns appeared. Eventually, cities emerged. This new way of life transformed human societies. Yet it also transformed human bodies in subtle ways. The diets of farmers often differed from those of hunter-gatherers. Daily routines changed. Work patterns changed. Disease exposure changed. Life expectancy sometimes changed. The human story entered a new phase. Imagine walking through one of the world's early farming settlements. Smoke drifts from cooking fires. Grain dries in the sun. People repair tools, care for animals, and prepare for future harvests. Unlike highly mobile hunting groups, these communities become deeply connected to specific pieces of land. Generations may live and die in the same region. Families build histories tied to fields, rivers, and villages. This stability creates new possibilities. Knowledge accumulates. Buildings improve. Trade expands. Social structures become more complex. At the same time, permanent settlements create challenges that earlier humans rarely faced. Large populations living close together allow diseases to spread more easily. Waste management becomes important. Competition over resources increases. New forms of inequality sometimes emerge. Civilization brings both advantages and difficulties. The process unfolds differently across the world. In parts of the Middle East, farming develops around crops such as wheat and barley. In East Asia, rice becomes enormously important. In the Americas, crops such as maize transform societies. Elsewhere, different combinations of plants and animals support growing populations. The details vary, but the broader pattern remains similar. Agriculture reshapes human life. As societies grow larger, specialization becomes possible. Not everyone must produce food. Some people become craftspeople. Others become merchants. Others become religious leaders, soldiers, administrators, or scholars. Human communities develop increasing complexity. With complexity comes innovation. Writing systems emerge. Mathematics advances. Engineering improves. Trade networks expand across greater distances. Civilizations begin leaving detailed records of their existence. For the first time, history enters an era where written documents complement archaeology. Yet despite these dramatic changes, the biological diversity of humanity continues, reflecting much older processes. Skin color still reflects ancient adaptations to sunlight. Certain genetic traits still reflect environmental pressures experienced by ancestors. The rise of civilization does not erase evolution. It simply adds new layers to the story. An interesting example involves disease resistance. As humans domesticated animals and lived in denser populations, exposure to infectious diseases increased. Some diseases evolved alongside human societies. Others jumped from animals into people. Communities faced new biological challenges. Over time, genetic variations providing advantages against particular diseases sometimes became more common. This process contributed to differences observed among populations. Again, these adaptations were responses to specific environments and historical circumstances rather than indicators of separate human categories. The deeper researchers investigate, the clearer this becomes. Human variation often reflects local history. What diseases existed? What foods were available? What climate prevailed? What migrations occurred? The answers differ from region to region, and so the traits found in populations differ as well. Consider another consequence of civilization: long-distance trade. Ancient merchants carried far more than goods. They carried ideas, technologies, religious beliefs, languages, artistic styles, and occasionally themselves. Trade routes connected people who otherwise might never have met. The famous Silk Road linked vast regions across Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and beyond. Yet it was only one example among many. Maritime routes connected coastal societies. Caravan networks crossed deserts. River systems linked inland communities. Human interaction increased steadily. These exchanges often produced cultural blending. A food introduced from one region becomes central to another. A technology spreads across continents. A religious tradition gains followers far from its place of origin. Civilizations influence one another continuously. This interconnectedness challenges older ideas about isolated peoples developing entirely separately. In reality, human history is filled with contact. Some contacts were peaceful, others were violent. Many were complicated mixtures of both. But interaction remained constant. The same principle applies to ancestry. Population mixing occurred repeatedly throughout recorded history. Empires expanded and contracted. Migrants settled new regions. Traders married into local communities. Refugees sought safety elsewhere. Human movement never truly stopped. This is one reason modern genetic studies reveal such intricate patterns of ancestry. Most populations contain contributions from multiple historical sources. The farther back researchers look, the more interconnected the picture becomes. Meanwhile, civilizations developed their own explanations for human differences. Some explanations reflected observation. Others reflected mythology. Many blended the two. Ancient people naturally wondered why neighboring groups looked different or spoke different languages. Without modern genetics, they interpreted these questions through cultural frameworks available to them. Some explanations proved surprisingly insightful. Others proved mistaken. The search for understanding has always been part of the human experience. As centuries passed, knowledge accumulated gradually. Maps improved. Travel expanded. Observations increased. Yet many mysteries remained unsolved. Why exactly did certain traits appear in some populations and not others? How were characteristics inherited? How closely related were different peoples? These questions persisted. The answers would not emerge fully until the scientific revolutions of later centuries. But even before modern science, one fact was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Human beings, despite their differences, shared remarkable similarities wherever they lived. Every society developed families. Every society created traditions. Every society told stories. Every society found ways to cooperate, compete, celebrate, mourn, and survive. The details varied enormously. The underlying humanity did not. And as global connections expanded further in the centuries ahead, people would encounter diversity on a scale never before experienced, forcing societies to reconsider long-held assumptions about identity, ancestry, and what it truly meant to belong to the human family. As global contact expanded further into the modern era, human societies began encountering something they had never experienced at this scale before: sustained, continuous diversity across nearly every continent, connected through trade, migration, and empire. What had once been gradual and local was now vast and immediate. Ships carried people across oceans in weeks instead of generations. Later, railways and steam engines compressed distance even further. Entire populations began moving with a frequency and scale that earlier civilizations would have found unimaginable. Imagine arriving at a busy port city during the 18th or 19th century. The docks are crowded with cargo from distant regions. Languages overlap in the air like overlapping currents. Clothing styles vary widely among those walking the streets. Food from different continents is sold side by side. For the first time in human history, large numbers of people are exposed not just to neighboring cultures, but to global diversity in a single place. This period intensified scientific curiosity about human variation. Naturalists, anatomists, and early anthropologists attempted to classify differences they observed. They measured skulls. They recorded skin tones. They compared facial features. They tried to organize humanity into categories that made sense within the scientific frameworks of their time. Some of these efforts were driven by genuine curiosity. Others were shaped by social and political assumptions. Without genetics, interpretations often relied heavily on visible traits. Skin color, in particular, became a major focus because it was immediately noticeable. Yet, even as these classification systems developed, they often struggled to capture the complexity of human variation. Nature does not divide itself neatly. Human populations blend gradually across geography. Traits overlap. Boundaries blur. Intermediate forms are common. The more data researchers collected, the more difficult it became to maintain rigid categories. Still, for a time, simplified models remained influential in both science and society. Meanwhile, global movements of people continued reshaping populations. Colonial expansion, trade networks, labor migrations, and forced relocations all contributed to unprecedented levels of demographic change. Entire regions experienced large-scale mixing of ancestry. New communities formed with blended cultural and biological heritage. Languages evolved rapidly in contact zones. Religious traditions adapted to new environments. Food systems incorporated ingredients from multiple continents. The modern world began taking shape. But beneath these visible changes, a quieter scientific revolution was unfolding. Researchers were slowly uncovering the mechanisms of heredity. After Mendel's early work was rediscovered, the study of genetics accelerated. Scientists began identifying chromosomes. Later, DNA itself was confirmed as the carrier of genetic information. This discovery fundamentally changed how humanity understood itself. For the first time, differences among populations could be studied at the molecular level rather than only through appearance. And what scientists found repeatedly challenged older assumptions. Human genetic variation exists, but it does not divide neatly into discrete biological groups. Instead, variation tends to be gradual and overlapping. Populations share most of their genetic material. Differences are relatively small and often distributed in complex patterns shaped by migration history rather than fixed boundaries. This realization had profound implications. It meant that many traditional ways of grouping humans were oversimplified from a biological perspective. It also reinforced a more unified view of humanity, a single species with shared origins and deeply interconnected histories. At the same time, genetics helped clarify why people look different in the first place. Traits such as skin pigmentation are influenced by multiple genes interacting together. These genes respond to environmental pressures over long periods of time. Sunlight exposure played a major role in shaping pigmentation patterns across the globe. In regions with intense ultraviolet radiation, darker pigmentation provided protective advantages. In regions with lower sunlight levels, lighter pigmentation helped support vitamin D production. These patterns emerged gradually through natural selection acting over many generations. Importantly, similar environmental pressures sometimes produce similar outcomes in different populations, even when those populations were not closely related. This is why human appearance can sometimes reflect geography more than direct ancestry. But genetics also revealed something equally important. Appearance can be misleading when used alone to infer biological relationships. Two individuals who look similar may have distant genetic connections. Two individuals who look different may share recent ancestry. Human history is filled with movement, mixing, and reshaping of populations. This complexity becomes even clearer when examining ancient DNA. Studies of prehistoric remains have revealed multiple waves of migration and interaction across continents. Populations that once lived in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas did not remain static. They moved. They interacted. They were replaced in some regions and absorbed in others. The human story is dynamic rather than fixed. Another important discovery involves adaptation beyond appearance. Some genetic traits relate to disease resistance, metabolism, or environmental tolerance. For example, certain blood-related traits are linked to protection against diseases like malaria. Other adaptations relate to high-altitude environments or dietary changes following the development of agriculture. These traits often arose independently in different regions facing similar challenges. This phenomenon highlights a key principle of evolution. Similar environments can produce similar adaptations, even in genetically distinct populations. At the same time, cultural evolution accelerated rapidly during this period. Technological innovation spread faster than genetic change. Ideas could travel across the globe within years or decades, while biological evolution typically takes much longer. This created a world where human societies could change dramatically without requiring biological change. Tools, medicine, transportation, communication, and education transformed daily life far more quickly than genetics could respond. As a result, modern humans live in environments very different from those in which many of our biological adaptations originally evolved. Yet the underlying genetic diversity remains. It reflects a long history of migration, adaptation, and interaction. A history stretching back to the earliest dispersals of modern humans out of Africa and continuing through every major movement since. By the time scientists fully understood genetics in the 20th century, the picture had become clear. Human variation is real, but it is structured by history, environment, and migration rather than by rigid biological categories. Skin color differences are part of this variation, shaped primarily by long-term adaptation to sunlight. But they represent only one small aspect of the broader human story. And as research continues into the present day, scientists continue uncovering new details about how deeply connected all human populations truly are. The story, however, is still not finished. Because even now, in the modern world, human populations continue to move, mix, and adapt in ways that will shape the future just as profoundly as the past has shaped the present. In the modern world, the forces that once shaped human variation have not disappeared, they have simply changed form. Climate still matters. Migration still matters. Genetics still matters. But now they operate inside a global system where humans move faster, communicate instantly, and interact across continents in real time. Imagine a city today. Not an ancient settlement beside a river, but a vast modern metropolis. High-rise buildings reflect sunlight during the day and glow with artificial light at night. People move through subway systems, buses, cars, and walking paths that connect enormous districts. Within a single city block, you might encounter individuals whose recent ancestors came from entirely different regions of the world. This level of diversity is historically unprecedented. Yet the biological foundations beneath it remain the same ancient patterns shaped over hundreds of thousands of years. Human beings still carry within them the legacy of migration out of Africa. They still carry traces of adaptation to climate, diet, and disease. They still carry genetic variations shaped by countless generations of survival. What has changed most dramatically is the environment of interaction. In earlier periods of history, populations often remained relatively localized for long stretches of time. Today, movement is continuous. Air travel connects distant continents in hours. Digital communication connects people instantly. Global trade ensures that nearly every region of the world is linked economically and culturally. This constant connection accelerates the mixing of populations. Genetic exchange continues, though now influenced by modern mobility rather than ancient migration routes alone. At the same time, scientific understanding of human diversity has become far more precise. Genomics allows researchers to analyze entire genomes rather than isolated traits. Large-scale studies compare genetic variation across global populations with extraordinary resolution. The results consistently reinforce a central conclusion. Humans share an overwhelmingly high degree of genetic similarity. The differences that exist are real but relatively small in proportion to the whole genome. More importantly, those differences are distributed gradually rather than divided into sharp categories. Human variation behaves like a gradient across geography rather than a set of isolated boxes. This is especially evident when studying traits such as skin pigmentation. Modern research has identified many genes involved in melanin production and regulation. These genes interact in complex ways, influenced by both inheritance and environmental pressures. Across evolutionary time, natural selection adjusted pigmentation levels in response to ultraviolet radiation exposure. This process created the global patterns observed today. However, modern migration has introduced new layers of complexity. Populations that were once geographically separated now coexist in shared environments. As a result, older correlations between geography and appearance are becoming less predictive over time. Yet the evolutionary history remains visible in the background. It is a record written slowly over tens of thousands of years, preserved in DNA and expressed in biology. Another important insight from modern science concerns human adaptation as a continuous process. Evolution did not stop when agriculture began. It did not stop when cities formed. It did not stop when modern technology emerged. It continues today, though often in subtle ways. Some populations show genetic adaptations to diet, such as lactose tolerance or variations in starch metabolism. Others show adaptations related to disease resistance, influenced by historical exposure to pathogens. High-altitude populations continue to demonstrate biological responses to low-oxygen environments that developed independently in different regions. These examples show that human evolution is ongoing, not static. But alongside biological evolution, cultural evolution has become the dominant force shaping human life. Language, technology, science, and social systems change at speeds far beyond genetic adaptation. A single generation can experience transformations in communication, transportation, medicine, and education that would have been unimaginable in earlier eras. This creates a unique situation in human history. We are a species whose biology changes slowly, but whose environment changes rapidly. That mismatch between biology and environment explains many aspects of modern life. It also highlights the importance of understanding both our evolutionary past and our present conditions. When people ask why humans became different colors, the answer is not a single event or a single cause. It is a layered process involving long-term evolution in different climates, migration across continents, adaptation to sunlight and disease, and continuous genetic mixing over thousands of generations. Skin color is one visible outcome of that long process, but it is not an isolated trait. It is part of a broader system of human variation shaped by environment and history. And importantly, it does not define deeper biological worth or capability. Modern genetics has made this increasingly clear. The vast majority of human genetic diversity exists within populations rather than between them. This means that two individuals from the same region can be more genetically different from each other than either is from someone on another continent. Such findings challenge simplistic interpretations of human difference. They also reinforce a more accurate understanding of humanity as a single interconnected species with a shared origin. Yet, even with all this scientific knowledge, questions about identity, belonging, and difference continue to exist in human societies. These are not purely biological questions. They are also cultural, historical, and social. They reflect how humans interpret the past and organize the present. Science can explain the mechanisms behind variation, but how societies choose to interpret that variation remains a human decision. As research continues into genetics, anthropology, and archaeology, new discoveries will likely refine our understanding even further. Ancient DNA will reveal more migrations. Climate science will refine timelines. New technologies will uncover details previously hidden. The story of human variation is still being written, not in our biology alone, but in our understanding of it. And at the center of that story remains a simple but powerful truth. All human beings are part of a single, deeply interconnected lineage, shaped by the same fundamental forces of nature, time, and survival. As the scientific picture of human ancestry became clearer, researchers began asking deeper questions, not only about where humans came from, but how small biological differences became visible across the world in the first place. To understand this, we need to step away from cities, laboratories, and modern technology for a moment and return again to the slow rhythm of ancient time. Imagine a small group of humans living near a coastline tens of thousands of years ago. The sea is calm, stretching outward into a horizon that feels endless. Waves rise and fall in predictable patterns. The group depends on fishing, foraging, and seasonal hunting. Every day is shaped by the environment around them. Now imagine that over generations, this group begins to move. Not suddenly, not as a single dramatic journey, but gradually, like water seeping into new ground. One generation shifts slightly inland. Another follows river routes. Another moves further north or south depending on resources. Over hundreds of generations, distance accumulates. What was once a single population slowly becomes separated into multiple groups. This separation is one of the most important engines of human diversity. When populations are separated, even small genetic differences can become more noticeable over time. This is because of three major forces acting together: natural selection, genetic drift, and mutation. Natural selection, as discussed earlier, favors traits that improve survival in a specific environment. Genetic drift refers to random changes in gene frequencies, especially in small populations. Mutation introduces new genetic variation over time. Together, these forces slowly shape populations in different directions. Now, imagine two human groups separated by thousands of miles. One lives in a region with intense sunlight. The other lives in a region with weaker sunlight. Both groups carry genetic variation related to pigmentation. In the high sunlight environment, individuals with darker pigmentation may have a survival advantage due to protection against ultraviolet radiation. In the low sunlight environment, lighter pigmentation may support better vitamin D production. Over thousands of years, these pressures influence the frequency of certain traits. This is not a rapid transformation. It is a gradual statistical shift across many generations. No individual chooses these changes. No single moment defines them. They accumulate quietly over time. But environmental pressure alone does not tell the whole story. Random events also play a role. Imagine a small population experiencing a natural disaster, a storm, a drought, a sudden decline in resources. If only a few individuals survive, the genetic makeup of the next generation may differ significantly from the original population, not because of adaptation but because of chance. This is genetic drift. It can amplify or reduce traits unpredictably. Over long periods, drift contributes to differences between populations, especially when they remain isolated. Mutation adds another layer. Every generation introduces small changes in DNA. Most are neutral or have no effect. Some are harmful. A few are beneficial. Over long stretches of time, these tiny changes accumulate. They become raw material for evolution. Now combine all of this with migration. Populations do not remain perfectly isolated. They move, they meet, they mix, they separate again. This constant reshaping of human groups creates a complex genetic landscape. It is not a tree with clean branches. It is more like a shifting network of rivers. This is why modern genetic studies often reveal unexpected connections between populations that appear geographically distant. Human history has never been static long enough for simple divisions to fully form. Even the concept of separate populations is often more flexible than it appears. Another important insight from modern research involves time. The traits we notice today are the result of long-term processes, but the timescales involved vary widely. Some adaptations take tens of thousands of years. Others can shift within a few thousand years or less under strong environmental pressure. Skin pigmentation is one of the faster-changing traits in human evolution. This is because it is strongly influenced by survival-related factors such as sunlight exposure and vitamin D synthesis. But even this change is not uniform across all populations. Different regions experienced different histories, migrations, and environmental conditions. That is why human variation does not form simple patterns. It reflects a mosaic of overlapping histories. Now consider something even more important: gene flow. Gene flow occurs when individuals from different populations interbreed, introducing new genetic variation into a population. Throughout human history, gene flow has been extremely common. Even in ancient times, people moved between neighboring groups, traded goods, formed alliances, and created families across cultural boundaries. This means that even when populations diverged due to environmental pressures, they often did not remain fully separate. Instead, they continued exchanging genetic material. This continuous mixing reduces sharp differences and increases shared ancestry. It is one of the key reasons why humans today are so genetically similar across the globe. Despite visible differences in appearance, the underlying genetic structure of humanity remains deeply unified. Modern science consistently reinforces this conclusion. Human variation is real, but it is layered on top of a shared biological foundation. To put it simply, we are different in detail, but unified in origin. And as researchers continue studying ancient DNA and modern genomes, this picture becomes even clearer. The more we learn, the more we see that human history is not a story of separation alone, but of constant connection. Movement, mixing, adaptation, and survival have always worked together. And it is this combination, rather than any single factor, that explains why humans look the way they do today. As genetic research deepened, scientists began to reconstruct human history with a level of detail that earlier generations could never have imagined. Not just broad migrations, not just ancient origins, but precise pathways of movement, interaction, and adaptation stretching across tens of thousands of years. Imagine a laboratory filled with modern sequencing machines. Inside, researchers analyze fragments of ancient bone. Each fragment carries traces of DNA degraded by time, heat, moisture, and earth. Yet even in broken form, these fragments still speak. They reveal relationships between ancient populations. They reveal connections between distant regions. They reveal stories of migration that left no written record. One of the most important discoveries from this research is how frequently human populations have mixed throughout history. For a long time, it was assumed that ancient populations moved in relatively simple patterns. One group replaces another, one culture ends, another begins. But genetic evidence shows something more complex. Instead of complete replacement, there is often continuity combined with interaction. Populations merge. They overlap. They partially replace each other while also integrating. This creates layered ancestry rather than clean divisions. Consider Europe again during prehistoric and early historic periods. Genetic studies have revealed multiple waves of population movement over time. Early hunter-gatherer groups were joined by migrating farming communities. Later, additional movements reshaped the genetic landscape further. Each wave did not erase what came before. Instead, it added to it. The result is a population history built from accumulation rather than replacement. A similar pattern appears in many other regions of the world. Africa, often described in simplified terms in older models, contains some of the greatest genetic diversity on Earth. This diversity reflects deep time depth, meaning many human lineages remained within the continent for very long periods while also interacting, splitting, and recombining in complex ways. Asia shows equally intricate patterns, with multiple migration routes and long histories of population interaction. The Americas reveal rapid and extensive adaptation following initial human arrival, followed by centuries of cultural and biological diversity across vast landscapes. Australia preserves one of the longest continuous human habitation histories anywhere on Earth, with deep cultural and genetic continuity. Each region tells a different version of the same underlying story. Movement and adaptation are constant. Now, as scientists piece together these histories, they also examine how traits like skin color fit into this broader pattern. What becomes clear is that pigmentation differences are best understood as adaptations shaped by local environmental conditions acting on shared genetic variation. Human populations already contained a wide range of genetic diversity long before they separated geographically. Environmental pressures then shifted which traits became more common in specific regions. This means that human differences are not created from nothing in isolated places. They are shaped from existing variation filtered by environment over time. This is an important distinction. It emphasizes continuity rather than separation. It also helps explain why similar traits can appear in different populations independently. Convergent evolution plays a key role here. When different populations face similar environmental challenges, they may develop similar adaptations even if they are not closely related in recent history. This is one reason why biological traits do not always map neatly onto ancestry. At the same time, human history is filled with repeated episodes of contact between populations that had been separated for long periods. When these groups meet again, their genetic histories intertwine. This creates layers of ancestry that reflect both ancient divergence and recent mixing. Modern humans are, in this sense, a composite of many historical threads woven together over time. Another key insight from genetics involves the scale of shared ancestry. When researchers compare genomes from different parts of the world, they consistently find that humans are extraordinarily similar at the DNA level. The small percentage of variation that exists is distributed across populations in gradual patterns rather than discrete clusters. This undermines any simple attempt to divide humanity into rigid biological categories. Instead, variation tends to follow geography in smooth transitions. If you travel across continents, traits change gradually, not abruptly. This gradient-like structure reflects continuous movement and interbreeding over long periods. It also reflects the fact that human populations have never been completely isolated for long enough to develop sharp biological boundaries. Even during periods of relative separation, migration routes and contact zones continue to exist. River valleys, coastal routes, mountain passes, trade networks, seasonal movements. All of these facilitated interaction. Even small amounts of gene flow can significantly influence long-term genetic patterns. Over thousands of years, these small exchanges accumulate. They blur boundaries. They increase shared ancestry. They reinforce the unity of the species. At the same time, cultural identity often developed independently of genetic ancestry. Language, religion, political systems, and traditions can change rapidly compared to biological evolution. This creates an important distinction between cultural differences and biological variation. The two are not the same. They interact, but they follow different timelines and mechanisms. Understanding this distinction is essential for interpreting human diversity accurately. As science progressed into the modern genomic era, researchers gained the ability to map these processes with increasing precision. Large-scale studies involving thousands of individuals across the globe continue refining our understanding of human variation. Each new dataset adds resolution to the picture. And with each improvement, the same core message becomes clearer. Human beings are a single, interconnected species whose diversity reflects shared ancestry shaped by environment, migration, and time. The story is not one of separation into fundamentally different groups. It is a story of continuous movement across a changing world. And as we move forward into the next part of this journey, the focus shifts from what shaped human differences in the past to what those differences mean in the present, and how modern society continues to interpret a history that is still being uncovered. By the time modern genetics and anthropology began to align, the conversation about human difference started shifting away from appearance alone and toward deeper questions about meaning, history, and interpretation. Because once you understand that skin color, facial features, and other visible traits are the result of long-term environmental adaptation layered on top of shared ancestry, the next question naturally becomes, why did humans spend so much of their history using those visible traits to define identity in the first place? To explore that, we need to return again to everyday human experience, because most ideas about difference were not formed in laboratories, but in lived social reality. Imagine a marketplace in an early modern port city. People from many regions are present. Merchants speak different languages. Clothing styles vary. Accents differ. Some individuals have traveled far from their birthplace. Others have never left the region where they were born. In such a setting, humans naturally begin sorting information quickly. The brain looks for patterns. It tries to reduce complexity. This is not unique to any one culture or era. It is a general feature of human cognition. Faced with large amounts of variation, people often rely on visible cues to make rapid sense of unfamiliar situations. In many historical contexts, skin color became one of those cues simply because it was immediately observable. However, what begins as simple perception can gradually evolve into broader assumptions if not examined carefully. Over time, societies sometimes attached meaning to visible traits that went far beyond biological reality. This is where history, science, and culture begin to intersect in complex ways. Because while biology explains how variation arises, culture determines how that variation is interpreted. In different historical periods, different societies emphasized different markers of identity. Sometimes language was the primary distinction. Sometimes religion. Sometimes region of origin. Sometimes social class. And sometimes Especially in later global contexts, physical appearance became more heavily emphasized than it had been in earlier eras. But even then, the meaning attached to appearance varied widely across societies and time periods. One of the key insights from modern anthropology is that categories of human difference are not universal constants. They are historically constructed frameworks used to organize perception. This does not mean they are imaginary. It means they are interpretive systems rather than biological divisions. Meanwhile, genetics continue to provide clarity about the underlying structure of human variation. As more populations were studied, researchers repeatedly found that most genetic diversity exists within populations rather than between them. This is a critical point that often surprises people. Two individuals from the same region can be genetically quite different from each other. Meanwhile, two individuals from very distant regions may share a large proportion of their genetic variation. This pattern reflects the long history of migration and mixing described earlier. It also reflects the fact that human populations have never been completely isolated for long periods of evolutionary time. Even when geography creates separation, movement eventually reconnects groups. Over tens of thousands of years, these cycles of separation and reconnection produce complex patterns that cannot be captured by simple labels. Another important development in modern research involves ancient population size. Genetic evidence suggests that at various points in human history, populations experienced bottlenecks, periods when the number of individuals was relatively small. These bottlenecks can amplify genetic drift and shape long-term variation. They also highlight how fragile early human populations sometimes were. Climate shifts, resource scarcity, and environmental challenges could significantly reduce population size. Yet humanity repeatedly recovered and expanded. This resilience is a defining feature of our species. As populations grew and spread, cultural evolution accelerated. Tools improved. Communication expanded. Social structures became more complex. The pace of cultural change began to exceed biological change by large margins. This divergence between cultural speed and biological stability is central to understanding the modern human condition. We are biologically shaped by deep time, but culturally shaped by rapid change. That combination produces both adaptability and tension. Adaptability because culture allows fast response to new environments. Tension because biological systems evolve more slowly than the environments we now create. Returning to the question of human color, this broader context helps clarify an important point. Visible differences among humans are real outcomes of evolutionary history, but they do not represent separate biological hierarchies or fundamentally distinct human types. Instead, they reflect adaptation within a single, highly connected species. The underlying unity of humans is far greater than the variation that appears on the surface. And yet, throughout history, humans have often focused more on visible differences than on invisible similarities. This is partly because vision is immediate. It requires no analysis. It provides instant categorization. But biology operates at a deeper level that is not directly visible. Genetics, ancestry, and evolutionary history cannot be fully understood through appearance alone. As scientific tools improve, this gap between perception and biological reality becomes more apparent. Modern imaging, sequencing, and computational analysis now allow researchers to reconstruct relationships that were previously invisible. Ancient migration routes, interbreeding events, shared ancestry across continents. Each discovery reinforces a more integrated view of humanity. At the same time, it becomes increasingly clear that the concept of race as a rigid biological system does not accurately reflect human genetic structure. This does not erase human diversity. Instead, it reframes it. Diversity becomes a continuum shaped by environment, history, and movement rather than discrete categories. And as we move toward the final stages of this journey, the focus shifts from how differences formed in the past to how modern humanity continues to carry and reinterpret that legacy today, within societies, identities, and the ongoing story of a species still in motion. In the present day, human diversity is no longer confined to ancient migration routes, isolated valleys, or slow-moving populations separated by geography. It now exists in shared spaces, shared cities, and shared systems that connect nearly every region of the world. To understand how this changes the meaning of human variation, imagine a modern airport. Not just any airport, but a large international hub. People move through terminals carrying passports from dozens of countries. Announcements are made in multiple languages. Flavors, clothing styles, and accents shift every few steps. Families reunite after long separations. Strangers pass each other briefly before continuing to destinations thousands of kilometers apart. In this environment, human diversity becomes immediately visible in a way that would have been rare in most of history. But what is often not visible is the deeper biological reality beneath it. Every individual moving through that airport carries a genetic record shaped by thousands of generations. That record includes traces of ancient migrations out of Africa, adaptations to regional climates, and more recent patterns of global movement. The present moment is layered directly on top of the deep past. Modern genetics continues to refine this understanding. Large-scale genomic projects compare populations across continents, revealing patterns of shared ancestry that cut across national and cultural boundaries. What emerges is not a map of separate biological groups, but a highly interconnected network of human relationships. Branches of ancestry overlap repeatedly. Populations that appear distinct in recent history often share common roots in deeper time. And even populations that diverged long ago often reconnect through later migration and intermarriage. This constant movement creates a living, evolving genetic landscape. One of the most important insights from modern research is that human variation is structured more by gradients than boundaries. As you move across geography, traits shift gradually. There are few sharp biological breakpoints. Instead, there are transitions shaped by distance, migration, and environmental adaptation. This pattern reflects the long history of human mobility. Another key insight is that many visible traits represent only a small fraction of overall genetic diversity. Skin color, while often socially emphasized, is controlled by a limited set of biological pathways compared to the enormous complexity of the human genome. Other traits, many of them invisible, contribute more significantly to biological variation. These include immune system diversity, metabolic differences, and genetic adaptations shaped by historical exposure to local environments and diseases. In many cases, these hidden traits are far more important for survival than visible characteristics. For example, immune system variation can determine how populations respond to infectious diseases. Throughout history, epidemics have influenced population structure in profound ways. Smallpox, malaria, influenza, tuberculosis, and many other diseases have shaped human survival patterns and genetic frequencies over time. Some populations developed partial resistance to certain diseases based on historical exposure. Others experienced significant population declines during outbreaks. These events left lasting genetic signatures that are still detectable today. At the same time, modern medicine has dramatically altered this relationship. Vaccination, antibiotics, sanitation, and global health systems have reduced the impact of many historical diseases. This means that some of the evolutionary pressures that shaped past populations are no longer operating in the same way. However, evolution does not stop. It shifts direction. New pressures emerge. Environmental changes, lifestyle differences, and global mobility continue to influence human biology in subtle ways. One example involves diet. The global spread of agriculture and later industrial food systems has created new nutritional environments for human populations. Genetic adaptations that once evolved in response to local diets now interact with globally standardized food systems. This can produce mismatches between ancient biology and modern lifestyle. Such mismatches are part of what researchers sometimes refer to as evolutionary lag. The body carries adaptations shaped by deep history, while the environment changes rapidly around it. Understanding this dynamic helps explain many aspects of modern health, variation, and susceptibility to disease. But beyond biology, there is another dimension to consider: perception. Even in a scientifically informed world, humans continue to interpret difference through cultural frameworks. People notice appearance quickly. They assign meaning even more quickly. But meaning is not fixed by biology. It is shaped by history, education, and social context. Modern anthropology emphasizes this distinction. It separates biological variation from cultural interpretation. This separation is essential for understanding human diversity accurately, because while biology explains how variation arises, it does not dictate how that variation should be understood. Throughout history, societies have created many different systems for organizing human identity. Some are based on geography, some on language, some on religion, some on political affiliation. And in certain modern contexts, physical appearance has become more emphasized than in many earlier periods. But none of these systems fully capture the underlying biological reality of humanity. They are frameworks for interpretation, not strict divisions of nature. As research continues, the picture becomes increasingly clear. Human beings are not divided into separate biological categories. We are a single species with a deeply shared ancestry, shaped by continuous migration and adaptation across time. The diversity we observe today is the result of layered history rather than separate origins. And as global interconnectedness increases, those layers continue to interact in new ways. Populations continue to mix. Cultures continue to evolve. Genetic variation continues to shift gradually across generations. The story of human diversity is therefore not a closed chapter. It is an ongoing process. A process that began long before recorded history and continues into the present moment. And as we move into the final part of this journey, the focus turns toward the long arc of that process, how everything from ancient climate shifts to modern globalization fits into a single continuous story of humanity in motion. To understand the long arc of human variation, it helps to step back from modern systems entirely and look at the deepest scale we can reasonably reconstruct. Not centuries, not millennia, but tens of thousands of years. At that distance, human history stops looking like separate stories and begins looking like a single, continuous migration event unfolding in slow motion. Imagine early Homo sapiens populations leaving Africa in small groups. Not as a coordinated expansion, not as a single wave, but as repeated dispersals over long periods of time, driven by climate shifts, resource availability, and population pressure. Some groups followed coastal routes. Others moved through river systems. Some remained in Africa for tens of thousands of years, continuing to evolve and diversify within the continent. Others gradually spread into Eurasia, eventually reaching Australia, the Americas, and remote islands across the oceans. Each movement created new conditions. Each new environment introduced new pressures. But crucially, these populations were never completely cut off from change or contact. Even in ancient times, migration routes overlapped. Neighboring groups interacted. Genes flowed between populations when contact occurred. Over time, this created a branching and reconnecting pattern rather than a clean split. To visualize this, imagine not a tree with fixed branches, but a river system. Streams split. They diverge for a time. Then they merge again downstream. The flow is continuous, even when paths separate temporarily. Human genetic history behaves in a similar way. One of the most important modern discoveries is that many population differences are relatively recent in evolutionary terms. That means the visible diversity seen today is the product of comparatively short periods of separation followed by long periods of mixing. This helps explain why human genetic differences are modest compared to other species. Our species has moved too much and mixed too frequently for deep, rigid divisions to form. Even during long-distance migrations, small groups often remained connected through intermediate populations. This created gradual transitions rather than sharp boundaries. As humans entered different environments, natural selection shaped traits relevant to local survival. Skin pigmentation is one of the most visible examples, but it is not the only one. Other adaptations include variations in metabolism, immune response, and physiological responses to climate and altitude. Each of these traits reflects a specific environmental context, but none of them define humanity as a whole. Instead, they represent local solutions to local conditions. Another key point is that these adaptations did not occur in isolation. Human populations were never static for long enough for evolution to operate without interruption. Migration continually reintroduced genetic variation. This constant movement slowed the formation of extreme divergence between populations. In evolutionary terms, gene flow acts as a connecting force that maintains species cohesion. Without gene flow, populations can diverge into separate species over long periods of time. With gene flow, diversity increases without fragmentation. Humans are a clear example of a species where gene flow has remained active throughout much of our history. Even in ancient periods, mobility was a defining characteristic of human life. People moved for survival, trade, exploration, seasonal resources, and environmental change. This mobility is one of the reasons why humanity is so widely distributed across the planet today. It is also one of the reasons why human variation is structured the way it is. As populations expanded across continents, they encountered new climates, new ecosystems, and new selective pressures. But they also carried with them cultural knowledge, fire use, toolmaking, navigation, social organization, language. Culture allowed humans to adapt far more quickly than biological evolution alone would permit. This combination of biology and culture is one of the defining features of our species. It explains how humans were able to inhabit environments ranging from Arctic tundra to tropical rainforests, from deserts to high mountain plateaus. Each environment shaped both body and behavior, but culture often provided immediate solutions while genetics changed slowly in the background. Over time, this interaction created a layered history of adaptation. Some changes are ancient and deeply embedded in our genome. Others are recent and tied to lifestyle rather than biology. And many are a combination of both. As modern science continues to study ancient DNA, a clearer picture is emerging of how fluid human populations have always been. Populations that were once thought to be isolated are often revealed to have exchanged genes with neighbors. Regions thought to be uniform are often shown to have been genetically diverse for thousands of years. And migration routes, once considered linear, are revealed to have been complex networks. This complexity challenges simplified narratives about human difference. It shows that humanity cannot be neatly divided into isolated biological categories. Instead, we are the result of repeated cycles of movement, mixing, and adaptation. Another important insight is that time itself shapes perception of difference. When populations are separated for long periods, differences accumulate gradually. But when those populations reconnect, the accumulated differences may appear more dramatic than they actually are in genetic terms. This can create the illusion of deep separation even when shared ancestry remains substantial. Modern global connectivity is now reversing some of this separation. Populations that were separated for centuries or millennia are interacting again at a large scale. This leads to new patterns of genetic mixing that continue to reshape human diversity in real time. From a biological perspective, this process is simply the continuation of an ancient pattern. From a cultural perspective, it represents a new and rapidly changing phase of human history. Both perspectives are valid, but they operate on different timescales. Biology changes slowly. Culture changes quickly. Human society exists at the intersection of both. And that intersection is where much of modern human experience takes place. As we approach the final stage of this journey, the focus shifts toward the long-term implications of everything discussed so far. Because when all the layers are combined, migration, climate, genetics, culture, and time, the result is a single overarching conclusion about humanity that is both scientifically grounded and historically profound. When all the evidence from genetics, archaeology, anthropology, and climate science is placed side by side, a single consistent pattern begins to emerge. It is not a pattern of separation. It is a pattern of continuity. To see this more clearly, imagine trying to reconstruct a massive puzzle, but without knowing what the final image is supposed to look like. At first, individual pieces seem disconnected. Some pieces show mountains. Others show rivers. Others show fragments of human tools, ancient bones, or traces of climate change. For a long time, researchers studied these pieces separately. Archaeologists focused on artifacts. Biologists focused on anatomy. Geneticists focused on DNA. But as methods improved, these disciplines began to converge. And when they did, something important became visible. All the pieces belong to the same picture. That picture is the history of a single species moving through a constantly changing world. Human variation, including differences in skin color, hair type, facial features, and other visible traits, is part of that picture, but not the entire image. It is one layer among many. Beneath that layer lies a deeper structure, shared ancestry. And beneath that lies an even deeper force, movement. Migration is the thread that connects almost every major pattern in human history. Without migration, human diversity would look very different. Without migration, populations would remain isolated for far longer periods, allowing greater divergence. But because migration has been constant throughout our species' history, separation has always been balanced by reconnection. This balance is crucial. It means that human populations rarely drifted far enough apart for complete biological separation to occur. Even when groups became geographically distant, they often remained connected indirectly through intermediate populations or later contact. This continuous exchange of genetic material is one of the reasons humans remain a single species with relatively modest genetic differences compared to many other organisms. Another key insight is that evolution is not a directional process. It does not move toward a fixed endpoint. It does not produce better, or worse, forms of humanity. It produces adaptation. Adaptation depends entirely on environment and context. A trait that is beneficial in one setting may be neutral or even disadvantageous in another. This is why human variation cannot be ranked in any meaningful biological hierarchy. There is no universal best form of human biology. There is only suitability to different conditions across time and place. Skin pigmentation, for example, reflects adaptation to varying levels of ultraviolet radiation. But pigmentation does not determine overall human capability. It is one of many traits shaped by environmental pressure. Similarly, other traits related to physiology, metabolism, or immune function reflect historical conditions rather than inherent differences in human value or potential. Modern genetics has repeatedly confirmed this perspective. When scientists analyze global genetic data, they consistently find that human variation is continuous. Populations overlap significantly, and most genetic diversity exists within populations rather than between them. This last point is especially important. It means that two individuals from the same region may differ genetically more than two individuals from very different regions. This undermines any attempt to draw strict biological boundaries between large human groups. Instead, it supports a model of overlapping variation shaped by history, geography, and migration. As research continues, ancient DNA has added even more depth to this understanding. It has revealed that human history is not a straight line of isolated populations, but a network of repeated interactions. Populations split, migrate, and diverge, but also merge again. New groups form from combinations of older ones. This cycle repeats across time. It is a dynamic system rather than a static classification. Climate science reinforces this pattern. Environmental shifts repeatedly pushed human populations to move. Ice ages, warming periods, droughts, and changing ecosystems all influenced migration routes and settlement patterns. Each environmental change reshaped the distribution of human populations, and each reshaping created new opportunities for interaction and mixing. Culture adds another layer. Unlike biology, culture evolves rapidly. Languages, technologies, and social systems can change within a few generations. This means that cultural differences often develop independently of genetic differences. Two populations may be genetically similar but culturally distinct, or culturally similar but genetically diverse. This separation between biology and culture is a defining feature of humanity. It allows humans to adapt quickly to new environments without requiring genetic change. It also means that identity is shaped by many forces beyond biology alone. When all of these factors are combined, migration, climate, genetics, culture, and time, the result is a deeply interconnected human story. A story where differences are real but context-dependent, where variation exists but does not define separate categories of humanity, where all populations are linked through shared ancestry and continuous interaction, and where the boundaries people often assume are sharper than what nature actually produces. In this sense, the study of human diversity is not a study of division, but of connection expressed in many forms. Every population carries traces of ancient migrations. Every individual carries a mixture of ancestral influences. Every region reflects layers of environmental adaptation and historical movement. And together, they form a single ongoing narrative of a species shaped by a changing planet. As we move toward the final part of the series, the focus shifts from understanding how this pattern formed to reflecting on what it means today, living in a world where the results of that entire history are present in every community, every city, and every human body. In the modern world, the consequences of deep human history are no longer hidden in distant landscapes or ancient remains. They are present in everyday life. They are present in cities, schools, workplaces, hospitals, and homes across the globe. To understand this clearly, imagine walking through a single neighborhood in a large global city. Within a few minutes, you encounter people whose families originate from multiple continents. Some lineages are recent arrivals. Others stretch back generations in the same region. But all of them carry biological and cultural histories that extend far beyond the visible present. Each person represents a convergence point of countless ancestral journeys. Every genome is a record of movement, survival, adaptation, and mixing across thousands of years. Yet in daily life, these deep histories are not visible. What is visible are surface traits, language, clothing, and behavior. This difference between visible identity and invisible ancestry is one of the central themes in understanding human variation. Because biology operates beneath perception, and perception often simplifies what biology reveals as complex. Modern genetic research continues to emphasize this complexity. When scientists analyze global datasets, they find that human variation is structured in overlapping patterns that reflect geography and historical migration, rather than discrete biological categories. Populations are connected through shared ancestry at multiple time depths. Some connections are recent, reflecting modern mobility and migration. Others are ancient, reflecting deep evolutionary history. And many are intermediate, shaped by centuries or millennia of regional interaction. This layered structure means that no single trait, especially a visible one like skin color, can fully represent a person's genetic background. Skin pigmentation, for example, is influenced by a limited set of genes that respond primarily to environmental conditions such as ultraviolet radiation. But the rest of the genome contains thousands of other variations shaped by entirely different pressures, histories, and random processes. Focusing on a single visible trait therefore provides only a narrow window into a much larger biological reality. One of the most important findings in modern population genetics is that human diversity is best described as clinal, meaning it changes gradually over geographic space. There are few sharp biological boundaries between populations. Instead, there are transitions. If you move across a continent, genetic traits tend to shift slowly rather than abruptly. This pattern reflects long-term migration and interbreeding between neighboring groups. It also reflects the fact that humans have never been fully isolated for long enough to develop rigid biological partitions. Even in ancient times, mobility was a constant feature of human life. People moved for resources, climate, trade, exploration, conflict, and survival. These movements created continuous gene flow between populations. Gene flow prevents deep fragmentation within a species. It maintains genetic connectivity even across large distances. This is one reason why humans remain a single species despite widespread global distribution. Another key insight involves how quickly cultural change can reshape human experience compared to biological change. Culture can evolve in decades. Technology can transform within a single generation. Social systems can reorganize within a short historical period. In contrast, genetic evolution operates over much longer timescales. This creates a mismatch between biological adaptation and cultural environment. Humans today live in conditions that differ dramatically from those in which many of our biological traits originally evolved. Diet, activity levels, disease exposure, and environmental conditions have changed rapidly in historical terms. Yet the underlying biological framework remains rooted in deep evolutionary time. This is not a flaw, it is a defining characteristic of the species. It is what allows humans to adapt rapidly through innovation rather than waiting for slow biological change. At the same time, this rapid cultural evolution means that many assumptions based on older environments may no longer apply in the same way. Understanding this distinction is important when interpreting human variation in a modern context, because biological differences are often subtle, context-dependent, and shaped by long histories that do not map neatly onto modern categories. As science continues to refine its understanding of genetics, a consistent conclusion emerges. Human beings are fundamentally more similar than they are different at the biological level. The variation that does exist is real, but it is structured through gradients, history, and adaptation rather than discrete divisions. This perspective helps reframe how human diversity is understood. Instead of viewing differences as separations, they can be understood as variations within a shared framework. A framework shaped by migration, environment, and time. And when viewed this way, the diversity of humanity becomes less about division and more about a record of adaptation across the entire planet. Every population represents a different response to local conditions within the same species-wide genetic foundation. Every individual represents a unique combination of ancestral contributions shaped by countless generations of movement and mixing. And every visible difference is part of a much larger system of variation that extends far beyond appearance. As we move toward the final stage of this journey, the focus shifts from describing patterns to reflecting on their meaning, how a species shaped by deep history continues to interpret itself in an increasingly connected world. When we step back far enough, the question, why did humans become different colors, stops being a question about appearance alone and becomes a question about how life responds to Earth itself. Because skin color is not an isolated feature. It is a biological record of environment, time, and survival pressure acting together over long stretches of human history. To see this clearly, imagine a map of the world that is not political but environmental. Instead of borders, you see sunlight intensity, temperature bands, humidity zones, altitude ranges, seasonal variation, disease ecology. For early human populations, these factors were not abstract scientific categories. They were daily reality. Every decision, where to move, what to eat, when to travel, was shaped by environmental constraints. As humans spread across continents, they entered regions with dramatically different levels of ultraviolet radiation. Near the equator, sunlight is intense and consistent throughout the year. Farther from the equator, sunlight becomes weaker and more seasonal. This difference matters biologically because ultraviolet radiation interacts with human skin chemistry in complex ways. Skin pigmentation, controlled primarily by melanin, acts as a biological regulator between protection and physiological function. Darker pigmentation provides increased protection against ultraviolet damage, particularly in high radiation environments. Lighter pigmentation allows more efficient synthesis of vitamin D in regions with lower ultraviolet exposure. These are not value judgments. They are environmental trade-offs. And they did not appear suddenly. They developed gradually over thousands of generations through natural selection acting on existing genetic variation. But sunlight was only one part of the environmental equation. Climate also influenced food availability. Diet influences nutrition. Nutrition influences health and reproduction. Health influences survival and inheritance of traits. Over time, these interconnected pressures shaped regional differences in human populations. At the same time, migration constantly reshuffled the system. Humans rarely stayed completely isolated. Even small-scale movements, seasonal migration, intermarriage between neighboring groups, trade expeditions, introduced gene flow between populations. This meant that adaptation was always occurring within a moving, interconnected network rather than in isolated biological laboratories. Another major factor was geography itself. Mountains, deserts, oceans, and forests all influenced the movement of human populations. Geographic barriers slowed migration, but rarely stopped it entirely. When movement resumed, populations that had adapted to different environments interacted again. This produced layered patterns of genetic variation rather than clean separations. Over long timescales, this creates what scientists call population structure, but not rigid biological categories. Instead, structure appears as gradual variation shaped by distance and history. Now consider disease environments. Pathogens have been one of the strongest selective pressures in human history. Malaria, for example, has influenced genetic variation in multiple regions where it is prevalent. Other infectious diseases have shaped immune system diversity across populations. These adaptations are often invisible externally, but deeply important biologically. In many cases, they matter more for survival than visible traits like skin color. Yet they are less often noticed because they are not immediately observable. This is one reason why focusing on appearance alone provides such a limited understanding of human diversity. Modern genetics allows researchers to examine these hidden layers in detail. What they consistently find is that human populations differ in many small ways, but share an overwhelming majority of their genetic makeup. The differences that do exist are distributed across thousands of genes, most of which are unrelated to visible traits. This reinforces a central conclusion of modern biology. Human variation is continuous, multidimensional, and deeply interconnected. There is no single boundary line that separates one group of humans from another in a biological sense. Instead, there are overlapping gradients shaped by history. Another important insight is that many traits evolve independently in different populations facing similar environmental pressures. This is called convergent evolution. It helps explain why similar skin tones or physical adaptations can appear in populations that are not closely related in recent ancestry. Nature often arrives at similar solutions through different pathways. This adds another layer of complexity to human diversity. It means that appearance alone cannot reliably indicate deep genetic relationships. As scientific tools improve, researchers are increasingly able to reconstruct these complex histories. Ancient DNA reveals past populations that no longer exist in their original form. Modern genomes reveal ongoing mixing and adaptation. Together, they show a species in constant motion. Even today, human populations continue to shift through migration, globalization, and interconnection. The process that shaped ancient diversity is still active, though now operating within a rapidly changing technological world. Air travel, digital communication, and global networks have accelerated human movement to an unprecedented degree. This creates new patterns of interaction that will shape future generations in ways we are only beginning to understand. But despite all this change, one fundamental truth remains stable across time. All humans share a common origin, a shared evolutionary history, and a deeply interconnected genetic foundation. Differences in appearance represent local chapters in a much larger story, not separate stories, but variations within a single unfolding narrative of humanity on Earth. And as we move into the final part of the series, we turn from explanation toward reflection. What it means to understand ourselves as one species shaped by the same planet, the same forces, and the same long journey through time. When science reaches a certain level of clarity, it doesn't just answer questions, it changes how the questions themselves are understood. The question, why did humans become different colors, begins to look less like a mystery about human categories and more like a record of Earth's environmental physics acting on a migrating species. To make that shift feel real, imagine observing humanity not from a city, but from a very long timeline view. Not decades, not centuries, but deep time, where continents barely seem to move, and human history is just a thin, flickering layer on top of geological change. From that perspective, humans are not separate populations that began different. They are one expanding species gradually adapting to new environments as it spreads across the planet. Each migration event is like placing the same biological system into a new setting and letting time adjust it. Different sunlight conditions, different temperatures, different diets, different pathogens, different altitudes. Each of these factors applies pressure on survival and reproduction. Over thousands of generations, small genetic variations that help in those environments become more common. This is how regional traits develop. But even this description can be misleading if taken too simply, because it can sound like populations were neatly separated into distinct environmental boxes. In reality, environments are not uniform, and human movement has never been perfectly contained. Coastal populations interacted with inland groups. River valleys connected distant regions. Trade routes acted like biological corridors. And even when distances were large, occasional migration events still connected gene pools. So instead of isolated evolutionary experiments, what existed was a constantly overlapping system. Populations diverged and reconnected repeatedly. Traits shifted gradually across geography, and genetic variation spread through both time and space. Skin pigmentation is one of the clearest examples of this interaction between environment and biology. But even here, the story is not simple. It is not a single gene responding in a single way. It is a network of genetic pathways interacting with sunlight exposure, vitamin metabolism, and long-term reproductive patterns. Different populations reached similar functional outcomes through different combinations of genetic changes. This is why human biology cannot be reduced to a single linear explanation. It is the product of multiple overlapping evolutionary routes. Now consider another layer, time depth. Some traits in human populations are extremely ancient, dating back tens of thousands of years or more. Others are relatively recent, emerging within the last few thousand years due to changes like agriculture, urbanization, or shifting disease environments. This means that the human body is not a single-time product. It is a layered archive of different historical periods. Some parts reflect ancient hunter-gatherer environments. Some reflect early farming societies. Some reflect recent adaptations to dense populations and global movement. All of these layers coexist in modern humans. This is why human diversity cannot be understood by looking only at present conditions. The present is just the most recent layer of a very long process. Modern genetics has made this layering visible in detail. When researchers compare genomes across populations, they are not just seeing differences. They are seeing history encoded in biological form. Migration events appear as shared genetic segments. Population splits appear as branching patterns. Reconnections appear as mixing signatures. Even ancient interbreeding events with now extinct human groups appear in subtle genetic traces. These findings show that human evolution is not a straight line. It is a braided system of divergence and convergence. At the same time, culture overlays this biological system and changes how humans experience it. Culture can spread faster than genes. It can unify groups that are biologically diverse. It can also differentiate groups that are biologically similar. This creates a second layer of human variation, one that operates independently of genetics but interacts with it constantly. Language, religion, technology, and social systems evolve on their own timelines. Sometimes they align with biological history. Sometimes they do not. This separation between cultural and biological evolution is one of the most important features of humanity as a species. It allows rapid adaptation without waiting for genetic change. But it also means that human identity is shaped by more than biology alone. Returning to the original question, why humans became different colors, the answer now appears as part of a much broader framework. Human populations spread across a planet with varying environmental conditions. They adapted biologically to those conditions over long periods of time. They remained partially connected through migration and gene flow. And their visible traits reflect this combined history of adaptation, movement, and mixing. But importantly, those visible traits represent only a small fraction of what it means to be human biologically. Most human variation is shared, not separated. Most differences are gradual, not absolute. And most of what defines humanity is common across all populations. As science continues to refine this understanding, the focus shifts less toward dividing humans into categories and more toward understanding the processes that created diversity in the first place. Because once you see the process clearly, the outcome stops looking like separate groups and starts looking like one species expressing itself across a wide range of environments. And that realization becomes the foundation for everything that follows in the final stage of this journey, where reflection replaces explanation, and the story turns back toward the present moment where all of this history still quietly exists within every human body. At this stage of the story, the focus shifts away from how variation formed and moves toward what that variation actually represents when stripped of interpretation. Because once the biological mechanisms are understood, migration, selection, drift, gene flow, the remaining question is not about difference itself, but about meaning. What does human variation mean when viewed without cultural assumptions layered on top? To approach this, imagine standing in a natural history museum, not the exhibits themselves, but the underlying structure of the displays. Bones, maps, genetic charts, timelines stretching across glass panels. Each artifact is a fragment of something larger, the movement of a species through time. Now, imagine removing the labels that separate populations into categories. What remains is continuity, gradual change across geography, overlapping ancestry lines, shared biological foundations. The sense of separation becomes less sharp. In modern population genetics, this observation is repeatedly confirmed. When researchers analyze genetic variation at scale, they find that the structure of human diversity does not naturally form into a small number of discrete clusters. Instead, it forms a continuous distribution shaped by distance, migration history, and local adaptation. This means that if you sample individuals from across a continent and map their genetic similarity, you do not see hard divisions. You see gradients, slow transitions from one region to another. This is a key reason why biological taxonomy struggles when applied to human populations in simplistic ways. Human variation is not organized like distinct boxes. It is organized like a spectrum with many overlapping dimensions. Another important realization from modern research is that most genetic differences between any two humans are extremely small in proportion to the total genome. The vast majority of DNA is shared across all humans. What differences do exist are scattered across many regions of the genome, influencing a wide range of traits in subtle ways. Some of these differences affect visible characteristics like pigmentation or hair texture. Many others affect internal systems such as immunity, metabolism, and cellular function. But even these differences rarely align neatly with broad population categories. Instead, they reflect localized histories of adaptation and migration. To understand why this matters, consider how human populations have moved over time. Every major migration event introduces new combinations of genetic variation. When populations meet and interbreed, their histories merge. This process repeats across generations. The result is not separation, but accumulation. Layer upon layer of ancestry building across time. Even populations that appear distinct in recent historical records often share deeper ancestral connections. These connections can extend far back into prehistory, long before written records or cultural identities existed in their modern form. Another key insight involves the relationship between adaptation and constraint. When humans enter new environments, they are not starting from scratch. They carry existing genetic variation shaped by earlier environments. Natural selection then acts on this existing variation, favoring traits that improve survival in the new context. But this process is constrained by what already exists in the population. This means evolution is not fully flexible. It is shaped by historical starting points. Two populations entering similar environments at different times or from different ancestral backgrounds may arrive at similar adaptations, but through different genetic pathways. This is why biological similarity does not always imply close ancestry, and biological difference does not always imply deep separation. It is also why interpreting human variation requires careful attention to both history and environment. Modern science increasingly emphasizes this layered perspective. Instead of asking how many human types exist, researchers now ask, how did populations move? What environments did they encounter? What genetic variation was present at each stage? How did selection, drift, and gene flow interact over time? These questions produce a far more accurate picture of human diversity. They reveal a species defined not by division, but by connectivity. Even in cases where populations were separated for long periods, complete isolation is rare. Some level of movement almost always persists. And when reconnection occurs, genetic lineages are reshaped again. This ongoing cycle prevents long-term fragmentation. It maintains the unity of the species even across vast distances and long time scales. At the same time, it creates the appearance of diversity that can be visually striking but biologically continuous. This distinction between appearance and structure is essential. Appearance reflects a small subset of traits shaped by local adaptation. Structure reflects the full genomic history of a population. When seen from the structural level, human variation becomes less about difference and more about distribution. Traits are not assigned to groups. They are distributed across geography in overlapping patterns. And as we move closer to the final stage of this journey, the emphasis shifts toward understanding how this scientific view interacts with human perception. Because while biology describes continuity, human perception often seeks categories. Bridging that gap is one of the ongoing challenges in understanding ourselves accurately in a modern, interconnected world. As this long narrative approaches its final stage, the focus turns from explanation to integration, how all these layers of evidence combine into a single coherent understanding of human variation. Because once climate, migration, genetics, and culture are placed together, the result is not a set of separate answers, but one continuous system operating across time. To see this clearly, imagine zooming out from human history step by step. At close range, you see individuals, families, communities. At a wider scale, you see populations moving across landscapes. At an even wider scale, you see continents filling with migrating groups over tens of thousands of years. Zoom out further still, and what remains is a pattern of motion across a changing planet. Humans are always in motion, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, but rarely stationary for long periods in evolutionary terms. This movement is the foundation of all biological diversity in our species. When populations move, they encounter new environments. Those environments create selective pressures. Traits that improve survival in those conditions gradually become more common. But because movement never fully stops, populations also exchange genetic material with neighboring groups. This constant interaction prevents complete separation. Instead of diverging into isolated biological branches, human populations remain part of a connected network. This network structure is essential to understanding why human variation looks the way it does today. It explains why differences are gradual rather than absolute. It explains why genetic diversity is distributed broadly across populations. And it explains why visible traits often fail to capture deeper biological relationships. Skin color, for example, reflects adaptation to environmental conditions that vary geographically, especially sunlight exposure. But it does not reflect the full complexity of ancestry. It is one trait among thousands, shaped by a specific set of environmental pressures over long periods of time. Other traits, many invisible, carry different historical information. Immune system genes reflect past disease environments. Metabolic genes reflect dietary history. Other genetic regions reflect ancient migrations and population interactions. When all of these are combined, the result is a multidimensional portrait of human history embedded in biology. Modern genomics allows researchers to analyze this complexity at scale. Large datasets reveal patterns that were previously invisible. Instead of distinct categories, scientists observe continuous variation shaped by geography and history. Instead of isolated populations, they observe interconnected networks. Instead of fixed divisions, they observe dynamic processes. This has led to a major shift in how human diversity is understood scientifically. The emphasis is no longer on classification alone. It is on process. How populations move, how they adapt, how they mix, how they change over time. This process-based view replaces static thinking with dynamic understanding. Another important insight concerns the relationship between time and perception. Human perception tends to simplify complex systems. It compresses variation into categories for ease of understanding. But biological systems do not operate in categories. They operate in gradients and probabilities. This mismatch between perception and reality has shaped many historical interpretations of human difference. However, scientific tools now allow us to see beyond that simplification. They reveal a world where boundaries are porous and histories are intertwined. At the same time, culture continues to play a powerful role in shaping how humans interpret themselves. Cultural identities can form quickly. They can be deeply meaningful, and they can organize human societies in ways that are independent of biological structure. But culture does not replace biology, it overlays it. The two systems interact but remain distinct in their mechanisms and timescales. Understanding this distinction is essential for interpreting human diversity accurately in the modern world. As we approach the end of this journey, it becomes clear that the question of human color is not isolated from the broader story of humanity. It is one expression of a much larger system involving ancient migrations out of Africa, adaptation to diverse climates, continuous gene flow between populations, environmental pressures acting over long time scales, and cultural evolution operating in parallel. Each of these forces contributes to the patterns we observe today, but none of them act alone. They interact constantly, producing the complexity of human variation. And when viewed together, they reinforce a central conclusion. Human diversity is not a set of separated categories, but a continuous expression of a single species shaped by a shared evolutionary history. As this understanding becomes clearer through science, the focus shifts again, this time toward reflection. Because knowing how something formed is one thing, understanding what it means in the present is another. And that is where the final stage of this narrative leads, back to the present moment, where all of this deep history still exists within every human being alive today, quietly shaping who we are without ever needing to be seen directly. At the final stretch of this long scientific and historical reconstruction, the story stops feeling like something happening in the past and starts feeling like something still unfolding underneath everything we see today. Because human evolution did not end. It simply changed pace and direction. To understand this, imagine the present world not as a finished result, but as a snapshot taken mid-process. Every population on Earth is still carrying ancient genetic legacies. Every region still reflects historical climates, migrations, and environmental pressures. Every individual is a living record of those combined forces. But now those forces operate in a world that has fundamentally changed in its connectivity. Global movement has compressed distances that once took generations to cross. Genetic exchange now happens across continents within a single generation. Environmental pressures are no longer purely local. They are increasingly shaped by global systems such as climate change, urbanization, and shared disease environments. This means that the same processes that shaped human variation in the past are still active, but under new conditions. Natural selection still exists. Mutation still occurs. Gene flow is now faster and broader than at almost any point in human history. Genetic drift still happens, especially in isolated or small populations, but it is increasingly influenced by global connectivity. The structure of human variation is therefore not fixed. It is continuously evolving. However, the direction of that evolution is not toward separation. If anything, it is toward increased mixing and increased overlap. Populations that were once geographically distant now interact regularly. This interaction reshapes genetic patterns over time, gradually reducing the strength of some historical regional distinctions while creating new combinations of variation. At the same time, environmental pressures are also changing. Modern medicine reduces the impact of many historical selective pressures such as infectious disease mortality. Improved nutrition and healthcare alter survival patterns that once shaped genetic frequencies more strongly. Urban environments create new challenges and new forms of adaptation, though often more subtle and complex than earlier environmental shifts. Climate change introduces additional long-term pressures that will likely influence future patterns of human distribution and adaptation. But unlike the ancient past, these changes now occur in a fully interconnected global system. That interconnectedness is the defining feature of the present human condition. It means that no population is evolving in complete isolation. It means that biological variation is increasingly shaped by shared global environments. And it means that the distinction between separate evolutionary paths is becoming less biologically meaningful over time. Yet, even as biology becomes more interconnected, cultural diversity remains extensive. Languages, traditions, identities, and social systems continue to vary widely across regions. This creates a layered reality. One layer is biological and increasingly interconnected. Another layer is cultural and highly diverse. These layers interact, but do not merge completely. Understanding this distinction is essential for interpreting human variation in the modern world without confusion. Returning to the original question, why humans became different colors, the full answer now spans an enormous arc. It begins with the dispersal of Homo sapiens out of Africa. It passes through repeated migrations across continents. It incorporates adaptation to sunlight, climate, and disease. It includes genetic drift and population bottlenecks. It is shaped by continuous gene flow between neighboring groups. And it is influenced by modern global mixing that continues today. Skin color, in this framework, is not a separate phenomenon. It is one visible expression of a much larger evolutionary system. A system that is still active. A system that is still changing. And a system that has never been about separation in a strict biological sense, but about adaptation within a single, mobile, interconnected species. As this realization settles in, the narrative naturally shifts from explanation to quiet reflection. Because when you strip away the labels and focus only on processes, what remains is not division, but continuity across time. And that continuity is still present in every human body today, carried silently through DNA, through shared ancestry, and through the ongoing story of a species that has never stopped moving. In the quietest sense, the story ends where it began, with a question that sounds simple on the surface, but expands endlessly the more it is examined. Why did humans become different colors? By now, the answer is no longer a single explanation. It is a convergence of deep time, environmental pressure, and continuous movement. But in this final moment, it is worth returning not to laboratories or timelines, but to the present experience of being human. Imagine sitting still for a moment. No maps, no charts, no classifications. Just the awareness that every person alive today is part of the same long biological lineage. A lineage that began with small populations of early humans moving across ancient landscapes. A lineage shaped by ice ages and warming periods, by deserts expanding and forests retreating, by oceans crossed and continents explored, by countless generations adapting, surviving, and passing forward subtle changes written into biology itself. Skin color, in this final view, is not a boundary. It is a record of sunlight, a record of geography, a record of adaptation across regions of the Earth that offered different challenges and different conditions for survival. But that record sits alongside something even more fundamental. Shared ancestry, shared origin, shared humanity. Modern science, especially genetics, does not erase difference, it places it into context. It shows that variation exists across all populations, but that the vast majority of what defines us biologically is shared. It shows that differences are gradual, not absolute. And it shows that the divisions humans often perceive so strongly are far less rigid at the biological level than they appear at first glance. At the same time, it becomes clear that understanding does not require removing diversity. Diversity is not an error in the system. It is the natural result of a species spreading across a planet with many environments. Different conditions produce different adaptations. Different histories produce different distributions of traits. But all of it unfolds within a single continuous human story. Now, as this journey reaches its final stillness, there is no need for further explanation, only reflection. Because what remains after all the layers are understood is not separation, but connection. A shared origin stretching back into deep prehistory. A shared present shaped by global interaction. And a shared future that will continue to evolve as humans move, mix, and adapt in ways not yet fully known. And so, in this quiet ending moment, you are left not with difference as division, but difference as variation within one continuous species. The same species that walked out of ancient Africa, The same species that crossed ice and desert. The same species that built cities, languages, and civilizations. The same species still changing, still moving, still connected. Now, gently, the mind can settle. Breathing slows. Thoughts soften. And the long thread of human history becomes something simple again. Not a puzzle to solve, but a living continuity to recognize. Close your eyes for a moment. Let everything rest. And remember that beneath every surface difference, there is a deeper shared story that has never stopped unfolding.